Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to episode 67 of the Stevie Richards Show. My name is Stevie Richards. That's why we have the super creative name of the show that we did 67 episodes and some review shows ago. Thank you for joining us. Today is part 2 of fan questions, but we're still not going to get to 10% of the questions that were asked of us, James Romero?
No, we're not. 1% maybe. I mean, we just got so many in that it's impossible to keep up with these damn things, quite frankly. But we've got so many questions in the pipeline, we're not going to be requesting questions for a little while, I don't think, at least a few months. But once again, thank you, everybody, for taking the time, asking so many great questions. We've picked a few more, I don't know, about 8, I think we're going to get to, in this episode. Then we've got a couple of what went wrongs, one from AEW, one from WWE. We're going to be talking about Raven and his recent revelation about Parkinson's as well. But let's do the intros very, very quickly first. Pro Wrestling Tees. The Stevie Richards Show is on Pro Wrestling Tees. BWO T-shirt. I was on such a roll. BWO T-shirts, the official ones. Stevie Richards Show merchandise and more. Link is in the description of every YouTube video since 2 weeks ago, because I'm not updating all the old ones anyway. Once again, as well, the Stevie Richards fitness channel as well. Stevie's constantly updating. I encourage you all to go there as well. What's the latest video you posted on the fitness channel?
It's where I overexposed myself. Well, that's a weird way to put it. In a cold plunge. I did not do the research. My wife pretty much almost kicked the door in on our spare bathroom because we have a chiller that goes into the bathtub. It's like a home cold plunge. And I was like, just like in wrestling, more is more. More is better. So 20-minute cold plunge. My wife is like, are you an idiot? And I was like, is that a trick question? Because yes, I am. I'm only supposed to be in there anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. But I am working my way down.
2 to 5 seconds.
No, it's great. After the first couple of times, it is awesome. It's like a big ice pack on your body, helping my lower body, my, obviously lower back issues. I do want to say something as well. While you're talking about, different things in the audience, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this show on YouTube. James and I were looking at some analytics, and just a mind-blowing number came up for 2 weeks into October as we record episode 67. James informed me that as of now, just for the month of October, 1.2 million unique visitors, unique audience members have checked out the Stevie Richards Show since the beginning of October. So that just blew my mind. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think 6... I'm trying to look at the analytics like immediately for whatever it's worth. I think that's in the last 28 days. Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing number. It really is.
Yeah, it's cool. It motivates and inspires us to even work even harder and hopefully bring those numbers up. But number one, the people that are currently watching hopefully are enjoying what we do. And these fan questions that we're doing part 2 out of 500, maybe, this just, once again, the term blows my mind because it's just amazing to see these people interested in stuff and fascinating, very detail-oriented questions where they really want to know what's going on or having an opinion that you can tell they're watching the show because the audience is getting more educated about things and challenging with basically questions that a fellow veteran wrestler would ask me. It's kind of cool.
There's a couple more things we always mention on the beginning of every show as well, and one is, of course, the Stevie Richards cameo. Stevie texted me on Saturday and went, I've had a brand new record of people, it was like just under 10 or something. And it's like, I don't even know if you're complaining about it. It's like, man, I've just got so many cameos these days.
I'm not complaining. It's just I want to do the best that I can, but really it was 6 cameos in one day, like overnight, and they were all questions that didn't even have to do with pro wrestling. It had mostly to do with fitness, and definitely a lot of people have asked questions. We'll try to answer them. And most of these, like you always say, we want to let people know that a lot of these questions are going to align with subject episodes, whether it's TNA, something about WCW, news-related stuff. Those questions can also be pinned to those. So please don't think we're never going to answer your question. Hopefully we'll be around long enough to answer each and every question here.
And, of course, the most important plug of all is the Stevie Richards Show Patreon. Not only do you get the pre-show before the show, which lasts seems to be lasting longer and longer every single time. And so you get your money's worth, maybe not just from that exclusively, but the real hook, apart from all the backstage exclusives and Stevie's OCD studio tours and the script notes and everything like that, the real hook for it is the weekly watch-alongs. And this, I believe, this Monday coming is going to be the longest watch-along we've ever done, and it sort of concludes our mini Bret Hart series, and this is Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, SummerSlam 1994, the cage match. I will say it again, I still say it's the greatest cage match that's ever been done. I know for a previous one that we did Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard, and I was just like, man, Bret and Owen crushes that as far as the cage match goes. But I know Tully and Magnum is your era for when you started watching wrestling as well, so I'm sure you've got a soft spot for those.
Well, it all depends on what the cage match represents. This I Quit match at Starrcade 85 was something that, as a kid, I've never seen. And since that time, I've never really seen it done in that way. You think about the level of violence today, and just pretty much no moments or memories are made because it all kind of runs together. You're desensitized. But that Starrcade 1985, if you haven't seen it, spoiler right now, the cage match, which was also an I Quit match, they broke a wooden chair, and Tully was trying to drive it into Magnum's head, which was already cut open. And then Magnum basically did that knee where he was like knocking him off him, turned around, and from behind did that. And it was awesome because the timing of Tully kind of covering it with his hands, and then Magnum, today they would just stick it in his head wide open. Everybody would be like, oh, okay, well, what's next? But that really did strike a chord with me. No less or more than the Bret Owen cage match, which I contend and give it up to you that is the greatest cage match in history. For length, for wrestling, using the cage, psychology, and even the finish, which some of it was planned, but Jim Neidhart had decided, man, I'm going to call an audible right here and now.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a Diana thing where they were like, man, I just really want to get in front of that camera, damn it. But Diana was involved at the end with British Bulldog. If you read Bret Hart's book, which I have done cover to cover numerous times now, because Bret's always right, he was really unhappy with Davey and Diana sort of stealing the spotlight from the end of the match, I guess. But you also did point out that Bret's always angry.
I was going to say, though, you got a lot of shocked emojis. The Home Alone thing where everybody's like, oh, my God, Bret's mad at somebody. And his brother Ross, who knows nothing, was there, according to Bret.
What?
Bruce. Bruce is the
I was going to say Bruce, yeah.
Yes. Ross climbed the cage and eventually got knocked off. Was that Ross?
Ross did, Bruce did, other people did, I think, over the way. But anyway, once again, it's the best cage match ever. Now, let's get to the fan questions. Once again, we're not sort of open for submissions at the moment, I'm sorry to say. But once again, 500 people wrote in, and we've saved at least 250 of those questions as well, because a lot of them are very good questions for future episodes. Now, the first question here on your format, Stevie, I'm actually going to save for a bit later. I'm going to go to the second question. This is from Dr. 60. Since many wrestlers have issues with the law due or after, maybe it meant during, or after their in-ring career, do you think it's because of the aggression level they have as a human being in general, which might be necessary for being successful in wrestling or other combat sports?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and there's a lot of credence to that. I'm going to break it down a little bit differently, although the natural aggression in some athletes or wrestlers, especially in combat sports and professional wrestling, is a form of a combat sport where your body is punished. And in a way, even though you're protecting your opponent, there is still some punishment both ways. I would say this because we made the joke before, James, that like literally most professional wrestlers during certain eras were actually a menace to society, but that's exactly what got them over in the ring, bigger personalities. And I'm going to speak a little bit on my personal kind of issues post-wrestling where I was so used to being physical, but there is something with that, not a natural aggression level. It could be somewhat synthetic aggression levels post-wrestling, in wrestling, and we've seen that a lot of times with athletes who use PEDs and stuff like that, that sometimes there's that thing that's been debated for decades about roid rage and other things that we're not quite sure, but it does sometimes, just like money and other things, those types of things can bring out a part of your personality, which is pretty negative. I will say this, being a retired wrestler, I get an outlet here, speaking about it, using my mind, using a smart board, using the iPad here, and we talk back and forth and have some fun and try to be entertaining. But it's been a problem for me since I officially stopped taking bookings to wrestle, mostly because of health issues, physical stuff. But I've always wanted a physical outlet. I'm a little bit too broken down right now to do jiu-jitsu or boxing or those other things. My back is very touchy right now. And as a matter of fact, for my birthday, my wife took me to a music instruction place to try to see if I could learn how to play drums, to get some aggression out, some physicality. Because working out is one thing, but doing something physical that you can get an outlet. And right now I'm in that I'm not going to go and commit a crime or go out there and be super aggressive with people. I'm very much an introvert. I don't have much interactions in the outside world. But yeah, I that's a struggle for most people, that whatever outlet you have, it's almost like a high. I would actually describe it exactly like a high, that you go in there, you work. It's a guy thing maybe. You hit each other hard in safe places. You're working up a sweat. You come back drenched with sweat, knowing that physically you gave everything that night, and you came back, and now you have a memory that you can say, wow, I pushed through that, or I got through this injury, or we really had the crowd right on the edge of their seat. That's all they really needed, not the whole one. They shouldn't have to pay for the whole one. That's an old saying there.
Oh, they'll sell you the whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge.
You're going to have to pay for the whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge. So whatever way you want to put that. But long story short with that, yes, I can see that happening, but it directly attributed to I got to be aggressive in wrestling. Now I'm having trouble controlling my temper, emotions, and all this stuff, because being in the business is the ultimate test of mental discipline, willpower, and holding yourself back from hurting another human being. That's the whole thing about wrestling. But mentally, guys want to still kind of, I guess it's that alpha male thing, or the bear becoming the old bear, or whatever it might be. You still want to prove that you can physically do it. And then Father Time turns around and says, I'm going to prove you wrong every single time as you age. So. Do you ever get that? Do you ever get that way? You've trained with martial arts and stuff like that. Do you ever feel like you need a physical outlet?
Yeah, I do. Since the knee injury, though, it's really, really tough. But the thing is, it's between... And fatherhood does soften you. And I think it actually chemically, it brings you down, and, you just soften, more gentle and all that kind of thing. But, man, I miss it. I was saying recently, man, I need to get back to classes. It's been so many years now. Apart from last year, but then we had the baby, and then I couldn't go to these classes that were a half hour away one way and then half hour back. Didn't have the time. Man, I miss it. I really do. And once again, I was never any good at it. But I like it. It's great. And the one thing it's really good for you is confidence. Anything self-defense is great for confidence. And I don't know if that's pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is good for confidence. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but that's also a trap, because where the guys running, and this is a post-wrestling retirement type thing as well. When you hang on to the false confidence of a character that's been manufactured and on TV, and you get to have that character in different storylines, that character gets extra layers, you create those memories and moments, which obviously there's a double-edged sword, because you can go signings and conventions and appearances and make money without even taking a bump. But there's people that think that's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. But also, what happens when the camera's not on you anymore? What happens when people start to forget you? What happens when you think I'm irrelevant? That could actually tie into the question where the frustration and aggression comes out, because you're truly lost after you're done wrestling and nobody cares. Because let's think about it. The business moves so fast. We're lucky to have people that still follow us. I'm really lucky to have people that still remember and follow now with the show. But not many people get that second chance or that opportunity, or dare I say, it's as big as it is to me, it's a blessing. And I'm very grateful for it. But there's a lot more stories about people struggling after the cameras and the lights and everybody saying you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you become a regular citizen. That's a tough pill to swallow, whether you're wrestling, acting, playing football, any of the above. Politicians, you can put them all in there.
See, because I used to talk about this with Don Morocco quite a lot, and because he became a longshoreman, which is apparently a job that's so hard to get into, and it's got great benefits and great pay and everything. I was like, how did you transition? And it was like, there was the odd joke and whatever at first, but man, it was easy. I mean, for him personally, he still wrestled for a few more years afterwards, but he didn't do the roids and he didn't work out anymore, and he just did it for fun, even including Eastern Championship Wrestling and all that kind of thing. But
I remember that. Yeah, he was one of the big guys. Him and Snook were the two top names in that Cabrini College and all the stuff around there. I want to say this too: being a longshoreman was it's an incredibly physically demanding job. So he is getting that outlet. That would be the most natural thing, as long as, and I got to give it to Don. Like my body just sitting here for 3 hours, and plus with the Patreon, I'm like, oh, I'm a little sore. I can't imagine wrestling over 300 days a year in that WWF ring, the Hogan Andre ring, and then doing just as physically demanding job, in his 40s and 50s, maybe after that.
Yeah, they shoved him on the computer at the end, which is hilarious because he's a one-finger typer.
That just proves he understands the politics, and he got over with The Office.
Yeah, of course. Right, we're getting a little away from the question, so I'm gonna reword it slightly for you. Does the wrestling business attract people who are attracted to chaos and are likely to be involved with altercations with other people and eventually the police? Or does the wrestling business change people more? I mean, what would you say is the more likely of the two? Does the wrestling business make people more aggressive, make people more likely to be arrested?
No, I don't think so. I think this is something that might be, and there's some stories about wrestlers that before they even got into the business, they were already in trouble with the law. They were a redemption story within the business and got their act together and became, big stars or even legends. I would say this. In my day when we started, I sound like an old man, there wasn't the availability to do MMA, jiu-jitsu, martial arts, these types of things. I believe in this modern era, more of those aggressive people are going to go into MMA because you see more of those people that are, getting into trouble with the law, just going on these crazy runs of whatever. The MMA, because you're allowed to hit somebody in the MMA world. You're allowed to knock somebody out. You're supposed to be as aggressive as you can be. As a matter of fact, we hear stories about people when they're sparring in dojos, they get thrown out for being too aggressive because they just don't know how to balance, like when the lights are on or you're just sparring with somebody. So MMA replaced and kind of shifted those super aggressive people that can fight into MMA. There are some here now, but the locker rooms are completely different. You could look around a locker room when I was there and go, I may be the only person here who's not a complete menace to society. I may be the actual only person out of maybe two or three, meaning a Nova, that could maybe function in society after this. But that's what makes wrestlers and wrestling special. And that's kind of what, for good or bad, they took out of the business for the most part. That unique character stuff that are also character flaws, especially after you're done wrestling.
Next question from Timorian. I have a question that may seem odd, but I've always wondered if Paul Heyman or any ECW talent had any encounters with the Philadelphia Mafia in the mid to late 90s. They were very active during this time.
Excellent question. It might just be ignorance is bliss, or my youth and being a clueless putz for real, not just on TV. We never saw anything like that. As a matter of fact, there's all these rumors about gambling and the finances and the money not being spent where it should have been or invested, that Paul was bad with money, that there was a Steve Carroll guy that was also kind of a weird dynamic with Paul. Steve Carroll, this guy that was basically there a lot. I think he was maybe somebody financially tied to Paul. He wasn't Mafia from what I knew. He was a New York guy, I believe. So there's these people who used to come into the locker room and be around that I would say hello and goodbye to, that I had no idea who they were. Did I get a vibe like they weren't doing the, movie mafia boss thing where, coming in wearing a fur coat with everybody around them and everybody kissing the ring. But yeah, this is South Philadelphia. This is basically, ground zero for the Mafia. So I'm sure if they weren't kind of somewhere hovering around the business end of ECW, there's probably a few of them just came to the show to enjoy it. But I have no idea. I know when you're talking about fire marshals and other people like that, there's always the commission was there for a short time in Pennsylvania. You have all these people trying to dip their hands into the cookie jar.
I like the idea of a commission going to ECW backstage. Like, these all look like a bunch of healthy individuals. Have a good night, fellas.
Yeah.
Like looking at Sandman comatose in the corner or something.
How do you feel? I feel good. Then you're ready to go, pal. And New York used to be like that at times too.
Okay, right. This begs a follow-up question because you mentioned someone called Steve Carell. Not Steve Carell, the actor, I guess, because I sort of heard that when you first said it. In your opinion, how do you think, because there must have been some money misappropriation, because they were getting licenses from games, they were getting pay-per-view money. Yes, it was being paid months and months after the fact. And not that many ECW guys were making six figures at the time. I mean, someone like Nunzio, Little Guido, was making $0 because he was doing it for the love and he was getting stiffed like so many other people have said, like Tommy, Rob, Shane, everybody basically for the most part. What do you think Paul was spending the money on? Because I've heard rumours, like you alluded to, so like, there were gambling rumours that he may have lost money on, outside ventures. What do you think it was?
Yeah, I don't know. The only rumor I ever heard was the gambling rumor. That's all I've ever heard. But I know he and Steve Carell were basically, Steve Carell looked almost exactly like Paul, by the way. Same ponytail, like balding head, side hair right there. But Steve, it was just a lone goodbye. He either came across as a matter-of-fact businessman or just somebody that gave off a vibe that I just wanted to say a lone goodbye to, and that was it. But Paul and him, they would have conversation, and I was never near them, but this was a guy that obviously could be right by Paul during a TV taping, during other things, and communicate with Paul. That's all I know for sure. And of course, South Philadelphia, you got money coming in. Let's go back to when I was in the company, 95, 96, 97. T-shirt sales were off the chart. And Taz and everybody, Taz was in charge of designing those, but Dreamer had the stock of the T-shirts and I think was shipping them out from his parents' house. But we were selling tons of merch, tons of tickets to shows, and let's not forget VHS tapes of the fan cams, of the shows, all this stuff. There was a lot of income coming in. And then you had the pay-per-view, obviously, but the house show business, TV tapings, merchandise, and of course, DVD sales and stuff like that. And then we did some conventions, like the CyberSlam conventions and other things, where they did packages for groups to come from New York to Philly on the bus. There was money coming in. And we weren't paying for mainstream music licensing either or anything else. So I couldn't tell you. That's neither here nor there. And I'm not going to speculate, especially in 2025, when this dude's trying to sue Vince Russo for saying he's fat.
Here's another thing that of all the income coming in, the figures. They were like the original San Francisco toy company. I know you didn't get yours because they hadn't signed the deal at that point. But they were selling a lot. They were selling a lot of those things. And I'll tell you something else, and this is from Shane's lips. He never got a penny from those. No royalties from the figures whatsoever. Because I guess Paul either said something to the effect of, hey, you should just be happy you were picked. Or basically, Paul just, I don't know if he told the company that he was paying the guys royalties, or he was telling the guys that this company doesn't pay royalties, or something like that. But Shane said he didn't get a penny from those figures, and they were generating in the 8 figures.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing that Paul is so charming, or has all these people charmed, that after all that, and I use this example more than anything, after everything and all the money and Dreamer buying a ring truck and Paul owing him money, the Dreamer's what kept the company running for a very long time. That's my opinion. After all that, to say, and the WrestleMania 17 thing with Dreamer and Paul, remember that? We did a clip about that. That you can still sit next to this guy and be around him and actually have a very civil conversation. I'm not saying you go at him and you do it, but so many people, I'm sure Shane would maybe be a little gracious, but there has to be a big part of Shane and everybody else is like, yeah, you got me, brother, but I'm never spending another half a second anywhere around you. You've already got me once. That's it. And that's our friendship or whatever is over.
I don't know, but it seems that so many people forgave him or are just so grateful. Even you said that you were grateful for what Paul did for you and almost willing to overlook.
No, not willing to overlook. I just wasn't. Yeah. I wasn't a victim in the 5 and 6 figure range like Candido, Tommy, Shane, whoever else that he owed money to. I wasn't in that era. He couldn't bounce a check for me because I didn't pay. I didn't make enough, to get a check bounced. So. Yeah, I feel for the guys that worked for free all that time and then literally saw him one Monday night as he said he's trying to get the TV deal in LA. And that dude's just commentating on Raw and they're watching and saying, I guess the company's done. Am I off base with the timeline?
No, I think the last ECW show was maybe early January 2001. And then there was just nothing for nearly 3 months. Then he just happened to be... Was it on Raw or WrestleMania he debuted?
Raw. I believe the Raw after WrestleMania, possibly.
No, it would have been the one before because he was commentating WrestleMania.
Oh, that's right. WrestleMania 17 he commentated. Yeah.
There's one more thing that's always puzzled me, is the arenas. They could not have cost that much. He was not running major arenas. He was running, National Guard armories and bingo halls, most famously.
Lulu Temple, a ton of small buildings. The Greyhound track, you're not doing anything outside of Greyhound track. That's it. And it's a building within the track. Listen, we're in 2025. There's never going to be the exact mystery solved of how any of this stuff operated or didn't operate. The guys seem at peace with the fact some people ended up on a real downward trend from that, meaning Candido and other people. I'm sure that affected them a great deal. I don't want to be in debt to anybody. Can you imagine running up almost 6 figures in credit card debt that you're not going to get back? Mm-hmm. So, what's done is done, and now everybody is looking at him like he's the uncle or the father figure that's going to help them with their career, which he's very creative. He knows what he's doing, but I wouldn't trust him with a dime.
Here's what I'm saying. I couldn't live with myself. If I knew that I owed people 7 figures due to my own actions and mismanagement, I couldn't live with myself. That guilt would eat me up 25 years.
People in the wrestling business can live pretty easily.
I know.
Not just him.
I just don't get it. All right, we'll move on. Russ Beardsley, when you did the right to censor, if you were given creative control and could have picked anyone to be a part of the faction, what members would you have picked?
I'll tell you what, I couldn't do a better job than Vince. I would have probably picked the same people. Godfather would have been number one, as much as you didn't like it.
Godfather, I was going to say,
no, the personal.
I mean, you personally as well, that you had to deal with these people every week.
Dealing with them, but it's the way to get the most out of the gimmick, out of the character, out of the faction. If I'm converting people that aren't, say people are 1 foot in, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, they're somewhat ethical, but somewhat on the vein of whatever the Attitude Era was. Sex, drugs, violence, whatever you want to call it. Okay? The Godfather embodied the things that the right to censor were against before it was the right to censor. So he would have been number one. Obviously, Bull was number one because I needed somebody to be a henchman, because who knew if it would have went to 2, 3, 4, or 5 people or whatever number in the faction. But Godfather was number one. Val would have been number two, which Val was number two. Those two gimmicks right there, for the business part because of the advertisers and because of the creative part, that these two are going to be converted. You need to go all the way this way before you can convert them that way. So yeah, I wouldn't have picked an Ivory was obviously a wild card in this. In a way, you didn't know how it was going to work out. But, and I mean this as a compliment, she was so annoying and wouldn't shut up and wouldn't give any ground on her opinion of anything. She was perfect. Could I have picked, well, I would have looked at other people, but nobody would have did the job Ivory would have done, because she should have been the leader after I fell out of favor with the office. And we would have been even more over as heels. Could you imagine a woman like basically dressing down and bossing around Godfather and Val Venus? You want to talk about turning the tables. That would have been really cool. But I can't think of anybody. You know what? Maybe, we did the thing with the Dudleys, which was one SmackDown, and got an incredible reaction. If we would have done something with the Dudleys and stretched it out, like you're trying to make a choice. Like they want to do the tables, but they also realize they want to do good. And that little part of them is still keeping them from getting the tables. We could have stretched that out for a month or two, maybe more, with them being subservient to us. But then if we had the tag titles, the mind that I had at the time, but I couldn't open my mouth, would have been, we were the tag champs, Godfather and Bull. The Dudleys, we wanted the Dudleys on our side because they would have been the biggest threat for the tag titles, but we were kind of masking it. So there would have been, to the Dudleys' faces, you guys are what we need. We took tables out. You're an inspiration. But behind their back, we would be talking, going, yeah, that's pretty much the biggest threat that we have, and now they're on our side. Let's use them. And then they catch us, and they say, oh, it's on, and they instantly win the tag belts. And what I would believe, even more over than when they had the tables before that.
I wrote down a few names. Let's say you can't get like Steve Austin or The Rock or The Undertaker involved. Let's say we're sort of in the mid to upper mid-card kind of area. But I think it's the first person you interacted with, Terry Runnels. Would she have been a good fit? As far as the Stacey Carter the Cat role, where she's there against her will. Because Terry actually did that once with Brian Pillman briefly for a few weeks as the sort of captured audience that Brian won from Goldust.
Yeah, Terry would have been good. And she was, my impression from that first one, there would have been a little bit more to it. But there wasn't for whatever reason. Any of the girls that did that sort of thing would have been plugged in, but Kat worked out the best, even though it didn't work out at the end, and it stopped pretty quickly after that. You know who I thought of when I was sitting down and I was being told there's going to be a faction, you're going to convert people, they weren't even sure if it was going to be Godfather Val until they finally made the decision after that meeting. Do you know who I wanted? Vince.
Would you have done it then?
I have no idea how that would go. Why not aim for the stars? The guy who owns the company is on my side and seeing it my way. And then there's a little bit of reality that's put into that because Vince was forced to, because I could say Vince or Mr. McMahon at this point. Mr. McMahon, aren't you worried about the advertisers and your legacy and everything? No, I'm saying, like, I would have told them, I would have done the truth in the promo. Hey, you're losing advertisers, you're losing money. Isn't this the company your father built? And then you want to grow it into a global brand? You got to see, I'm seeing things for you, see things our way. I don't know. It was perfect the way it was laid out. It could have won a lot longer, but obviously from within and outside, it was being sabotaged. So it lasted as long as it did.
I'll give you a few more names. Road Dogg.
Yeah, but it might have been too much tongue-in-cheek. Like, ha-ha, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Not a completely serious thing. Because that was the strength of his character.
Rikishi.
We did work with Rikishi, and we worked with Billy Gunn when he was Mr. Ass. These were people I worked with, but I don't think they wanted... Maybe it was kind of floated around to Rikishi and to... for Rikishi especially. But...
Didn't Billy Gunn, I'll get to Rikishi in a second, didn't Billy Gunn lose a match to you and he had to stop being called Mr. Ass?
Yes.
And then he was just a Billy. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So...
Well, that's quite surprising that he wouldn't join at that time then, because he was sort of in the same vein as Godfather and Val.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine him and Val as a tag team? They're monsters. I mean, all four of those guys are monsters. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Rikishi. We did the thing where we teased... I kept getting a week away from the stink face, then he finally gave it to me. So these were probably all floated around, but I was very aware that we could definitely be in NWO territory if we start expanding into 7, 8, 9, 10 people.
I've got two more names for you. X-Pac. Because I imagine him with his hair tied back and, a neat beard kind of thing. I think he could have fit.
I think anybody and everybody could have fit in the Attitude Era. Think about that. Everybody had a style and an identity that could have been converted by the right to censor. But also, I saw it more as, you think about the biggest name you could do? What about Taker? He was our biggest foe at the end, but it wouldn't have made sense. There's certain things where it's like, how can we make them act differently? What would it be?
There's one more name, and you were working with him at the end, Jerry Lawler. Because that actually would have gone in a storyline sense, maybe, because you already had the cat for, a day before she left. But then what if you defeated Jerry Lawler and then brought him in and then they could split off at a later date?
Oh, it would have been great to have Jerry Lawler basically being our propaganda machine on commentary for a short time.
We will move on. Generational Hero asks you, Stevie, any memories of the Bourne Again gimmick in ECW? And for people who don't remember Bourne Again, who was he?
Matt Bourne, Doink the Clown, but he did the half face paint, no wig, and Shane brought him in, I believe, right?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know
Shane
he was
Douglas,
fired.
I think, brought him in.
I know he was fired from the WWF at the very end of 93, I think.
But I do recall a promo, 93, 94, but I recall a promo where Shane brought him onto the set and they did a promo together. And Matt was there for a very short time.
What are your memories of Matt? Because I mentioned Don Morocco earlier, and I bring him up fondly on these shows relatively often. And he said, when we were doing the podcast, there were only two people he could honestly say hand on heart he hated. One was Ole Anderson, and the other one was Matt Bourne. Because apart from the fact that he just couldn't stand the guy, he foolishly lent Matt his rental car. Fill in the blanks. Trashed it, totaled it, not even sure he had the insurance. Don was furious. And Matt Bourne seems to be one of those guys, very talented, not worth the headache.
Very talented. I don't know about not worth the headache as far as personally. I never met Matt. Actually, I might take that back. I never met Matt during that time. I met him once on the Indies at an indie show in Jersey or New York, shook his hand, and that was it. That's my extent of dealing with him. When I went to ECW to get pinned by the Funks using a headlock, we'll have that on the Wrestling Analysis channel soon, but that was 94. I think he was already gone or not being used by that time.
He was in the NWA World Title Tournament, so he was in ECW 94. Doink lost a match to then ECW World Heavyweight Champion Shane Douglas. Douglas criticised Vince McMahon for turning a talented wrestler like Bourne into a comic relief character and claimed that he knew how to bring out Bourne's potential. It just says the rest of this thing. His tenure with the company was short-lived due to personal problems. He was almost doing the Darby Allin thing before Darby Allin, weirdly. Mm-hmm. The half paint.
Absolutely. So he was in the same locker room as a very young Steve Richards, who was just bringing his bags to hoping to get chokeslammed by 911 every night. But I was there. I was backstage during the title tournament where Shane threw the belt down and Carluza and everybody was just scrambling. But I was probably just in a corner, said hello to everybody, and then went back to the corner to avoid being noticed in any way.
Next question. We've got a few in a row here, all related to the same. Jazz Agu says, big fan of the show, been watching since the wrestling anal days. For those who don't know, Stevie Richards' wrestling analysis went on the YouTube app on your phone. Always cut off at the L for analysis.
I tried to change the name. There's nothing else I can think of.
Outside of sports games, what are your top 5 video games of all time?
Oh, wow. The Batman Arkham City game, which was the second one, I believe. There was Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and then Arkham Knight. Arkham City I actually completed, and it was an amazing game. It was so much fun to do that. I don't know what put me in the mindset back then to sit down and do however many dozens of hours with that game. Outside of wrestling, I would say NFL 2K5 is the greatest football game ever made.
Non-sports. Specifically, he asked for non-sports.
Good Lord. Uh, GoldenEye for 64, 007 GoldenEye, right up there.
It's so archaic though, the controls, and
No,
I loved
when I was
you're
playing
odd job
it,
and you're playing slaps and multiplayer, brilliant. So you can only chop each other to death. That's great. Or, a man with a golden gun. But man, it's archaic compared to your Call of Duties and what now.
have you ever played the Die Hard trilogy game or
Yes.
the regular Die Hard game on the original PlayStation, correct? PlayStation 1?
Yeah, when I bought the PlayStation, that was the demo that came with it. You got like the black disc with the demo, and they'd always update throughout the years. Anyway, when I got it, I had that as a demo. Because it was trilogy, it was 3 separate games, but I had the one on the demo that was on the rails, the rail shooter, basically. Loved it, played that to death. I loved it.
The other one on the original Xbox would be Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, although I got the order number wrong because I asked AI last week. Dumb AI sucks. So Star Wars, I get through these things where I'm like, I'm just obsessed with a game. I haven't been like that in a long time, but Batman Arkham City made me sit down and be obsessed about completing the game because the storyline, much like Knights of the Old Republic, had such a weirdly deep storyline that was choose your own adventure, but it was a little bit linear at the same time. You didn't have to go so far off the rails. I think the other one would be Grand Theft Auto.
San Andreas, I played that thing to death, man. What a game. What annoys me, the one thing, you can't go back to it though, because in the later ones, you can flip the car over when you inevitably flip it on its roof. You can just do the control thing and then flip it back again. And you get that sort of quality of life thing on San Andreas didn't exist at that point.
I was going to say, really I only pay attention. Grand Theft Auto is the only star ratings I pay attention to when the cops are chasing you.
That's 3 or 4. So GTA, GoldenEye, Star Wars, and what was the other one you said, the first one? Forget it. You've got one more.
I got one more. Oh, my goodness. I should have played some games yesterday and today. I don't get these questions until just before the episode. Oh, here we go. I haven't played it in forever since the MS-DOS days. Star Trek: A Final Unity. Amazing game. The best Star Trek game ever made. I tried to play on the Genesis, Super NES. I tried to play Star Trek Online. I tried to play all these. Star Trek Bridge Crew is also right up there, I should say. A Final Unity, but when I had the PSVR, the original one, with my PS4, I'd play Star Trek Bridge Crew, and then sometimes Big Sal would join me, and I would order him around and be a really bad captain of the Enterprise. Really good game.
I've written a few down, you tell me. Call of Duty Warzone. Super Mario World. I never hear you talk about Nintendo, really. But I love Nintendo games, man. But Super Mario
Nintendo
World,
game I would play would be Animal Crossing when I was on the road.
It's too ambling. There's no aim.
Well, you know what it is? It's like Stardew Valley. Basically, they have to hook you into playing the game every day because the world continues if you don't play. You can come back and then everything. I was fascinated by that. It was almost like kind of AI before AI in a way. When you're looking at the game, you're like, wow. There's a ton of Dreamcast games too, but they're mostly wrestling and sports-based games I would play.
I put Wii Bowling for some reason. I just love Wii Bowling.
Oh, Wii Sports. All right, there we go.
But that counts as sports, though, so that's why I didn't want to put it in. But, man, Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort, man, great.
You want to talk about a game that's worth buying a system for? The Wii Play, the Wii Sports, the Wii Sports Resort. We would just play that. The bowling was great. The archery was great. Yeah. Lots of great games.
Frisbee. One that people forget on, the golf, of course. One that people seem to forget on Wii Sports Resort is the fruit chopping. And you have to, a bit of fruit or whatever would land, and you've got to do it in the right direction. I loved that. And I've still got the Wii U down there somewhere that I could actually have a go at any time now. I've a couple more I'm going to mention. Last of Us, the original remastered, is still the best story that's ever been told in a game. I loved The Last of Us. I played that to death. One that I always forget about, but I played umpteen times, Pokemon Soul Silver, which was the 4th gen remaster of the 2nd gen Pokemon Silver or Heart Gold or whatever, it doesn't matter. I just, the first 2 generations of Pokemon, love them. Like, I wasn't like a geek for the anime or anything like that. I just thought the games were fantastic.
Yeah, so you're not going to be a Pokemon Go person that hangs outside like fire stations and police departments, or going to Target when the new Pokemon's coming out.
Oh, dude, if at the time, because I don't think we got like, you know, when you had to get like a Pokemon that you had to go to a physical shop for, and there were only a few in the world. I know they were always in Tokyo or New York, and that was it. And you know, if it was going to be an Arceus or something like that, and you're never going to get it unless you flew 6,000 miles. And then also knew about the giveaway as well at the same time. Not a chance. Not a chance. Just do a game shot.
I'm going to give you one more that the second one disappointed me a little bit so far because I bought it for the Steam Deck. But I used to play Red Dead Redemption all the time, basically based off of Grand Theft Auto. Did you ever go to YouTube and see like the meme with that woman in the beginning of Red Dead Redemption and all the crazy things they would do to her? Like throw her in and have her eaten by alligators or bring her up to the roof. She was like, she was somebody petitioning, I think, for women's voting rights or some weird, and they tie her up and drag her with a horse. And I mean, future wrestling fans, I guess.
I thought 2 was too, but I love 1, but I thought 2 was too boring. It just took too
long
to get going.
Yeah, 1 was like, we're right into it. I'm just scratching the surface of 2, and I'm like, man, I should have just bought another game like Elder Scrolls Oblivion or something like that, or Assassin's Creed, which also can kind of like, depending on the type you do, they're all different games within their own thing. What are you getting?
All my games are right behind me, so I'm trying to look at like some of those. I do actually have Animal Crossing, but like all I did was fishing on it, and then I just got bored. But like, of all the Mario games and the Donkey, like I'm one of the only people who really love Donkey Kong 64, despite the fact it's just a big collectathon. I'm trying to think what else I used to play that aren't sports games. A million things, I'm sure.
It's pretty hard to do unless you want to sit down and we think about I always look up how many hours does this take to complete, and I'm like, as good as it is, 80 hours, I'm not sure.
You know, there's only 3 times in my life where I saw a game and my mind blew at the technological advancement. The first one was when we got the you call it the Super Nintendo, we just call it the SNES. When we first got the SNES and the Mega Drive, which is the Mega Drive everywhere in the world apart from in the States, which is the Genesis. Because all we had before then was the Intellivision and the Commodore 16+4, which was the underpowered European exclusive version of the 64. And then we went from that, because we skipped the NES. We skipped like the 8-bit and went straight to 16-bit. Like we skipped like from 1-bit to 16. So there was, whether it's Streets of Rage 1, which I still maintain is the best of the Streets of Rages, no one agrees with me. Best soundtrack, if nothing else. Sonic 2, because we had Sonic and Sonic 2 with a few more games. Man, the Lotus driving game was great, and Top Gear was great on that. Then we went to the SNES, and man, when Killer Instinct came out, I thought those graphics were amazing. Or Vector Man, which were like late edition versions, at like, 95, 96. Oh, Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the PlayStation specifically, I loved. But there were 3 games that blew my mind. 1 is when we made the jump from 1-bit to 16. 2 was Mario 64. I nearly cried when I saw that. I was so amazed.
3D models, yeah.
Amazing. And Wii Sports. Couldn't believe it when I saw it, and I was 20. Like, I wasn't even, like, a boy anymore, but I'm just like, I was so filled with awe seeing Wii Sports. Amazing game.
Did you talked about ColecoVision. I love ColecoVision. Do you remember Rock and Rope?
No, I had the Intellivision. The ColecoVision
okay.
different.
There's another game. Intellivision, I think, but definitely the consoles as they went along. Favorite game probably for years and years and years. Pitfall.
Yeah. I did have that.
You'd swing the rope and you're like, oh no, I didn't let go in time. You're down there and you get eaten by the alligator.
I've got 2 more for you. Command & Conquer Red Alert Retaliation. Love that game. And Theme Park or Theme Hospital. Either of the originals of those.
I played
2.
Theme Hospital. That was really good.
Man, I love Theme Hospital. Did you have it on PC? Because the PC one froze. But the PlayStation one didn't.
For a time I did. Yeah, then I had it on console, and that wasn't that great of an experience. Consoles are never that great of an experience. Even with the Sims, sometimes it's not. You know, we don't put up clown paintings and burn them on the wall and trap somebody in a room with no doors like a certain
Mr.
co-host. Did I get that wrong?
I never not burst out laughing when I did it. For people who don't know, what I used to do, like, people with no imagination, if they wanted to kill a sim, would put them in the pool and then take away the ladder, then they'd eventually drown. What I would do is put everybody... What I would do is have a room with no doors and just a fireplace, a load of rugs on the floor, and as many clown paintings that I could fit on the wall, right? Because eventually...
The amount of thought you're putting into this is, like, disturbing.
No one told me to do this, though. I didn't read this.
That's even more. You're making it worse.
and then eventually, because a clown would pop out the painting. So then you just have this room with 20 clowns in it, all bumping into each other. And then one of them would dick around with the fireplace and then just burn the entire... Like, it wouldn't even be gradual burning. It'd just be like, the clown would just touch the fireplace and then every single square would just become flames. Every single time I did that, and it was way more than once.
I thought it was bad that I would just stand there and never leave the party and be the last one there, and the people would cry, and I'd follow them up to their bedroom.
Yeah. You just wouldn't let them go to the bathroom.
Lord, I've never seen you laugh so much.
Oh, man. That was a very weird child. But that was the way to really enjoy yourself on The Sims.
See, my wife thought I was a sociopath because I played Sims one time, and all I kept doing outside was banging the garbage can, and the person kept coming out crying because I wouldn't let them sleep. But then I told her your story, and she said, yes, you can just keep banging the trash can. I prefer that.
Do you know what bums me out about getting older? It's because I don't have the patience for, like, city skylines or Thingy Coaster.
SimCity I used to play all the time.
Oh, the original one. The music of that is great. When I was writing books still, I would just have the OST of that in the background. I loved the SimCity music. Do you get nostalgia for the games more for the music than the games themselves sometimes?
Well, GoldenEye for sure. I love the pause music. Somebody has an 8-hour loop of the pause music.
So like an ASMR falls asleep too. I
also fall asleep to the Star Trek warp engine sounds.
Oh, God.
Yes, I do.
I've got tinnitus, as I've mentioned maybe once before. So I always have to have something in the background.
You should try. You're going to sleep. It's like Delta Wave music. It's awesome.
No, I have to listen to podcasts. I have to concentrate on something. So all I do at the moment, since we're doing being a bunch of squares on games, is to follow this dude on he's called JRose11, and all I do is listen to him doing solo runs on Pokemon Red and Blue. And that's all he does other things as well, all Pokemon related, but I listen to this dude every night and it sends me off, man. And I weirdly think that's the best compliment you can give someone. Like if someone says, oh, your podcast makes me fall asleep, it's like brilliant.
Yeah, people say that about this one and it's relaxing. I don't take that as an insult whatsoever. We should do a gaming podcast. It seems like we already did one just now. That segment was pretty long.
Man, we get so enthusiastic about these things. Do you know what's going to really annoy you about this, right? I've still got... Do you ever buy games and just keep them in the wrapper?
No, I haven't done that since I was a kid.
Dude, I've still got Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Maybe not the Wind Waker, Breath of the Wild. I got that when I got the Switch. I've still not unwrapped it.
It's an amazing
still fresh in its packaging.
Breath of the Wild, that's a console game to just buy for that one.
I think some people will say Mario Kart. I mean, if you're going to do the Switch, but like the Switch 2, man, there's nothing grabbing me, and I love Donkey Kong, and I want to give the new one a go.
Is it $80?
Yeah, but here's the thing about game prices, is that games have actually been, if you're going to take inflation into account, they've been too cheap for decades. Like I'll give you an example. I remember asking for Sonic and Knuckles in 1994 for Christmas, and I remember looking through the Argos catalogue, or the Index catalogue, or the Littlewoods or whatever. It was £40 in 94. Games these days are maybe £60, maybe, for like a AAA premium game kind of thing. Not including, the special edition Swizzes and all that scam. But it's like, if you're doing it for inflation, that game would be £100 now. And I think a lot of people complain about it, but it's one of those things that just have not gone in line up with inflation. I don't mind paying 60.
Yeah, but you know what they're complaining about? Not the price, even though the price is the price. The fact that the actual game has been shortened up and less, it's shrinkflation for the game, and you got to buy the DLC after that.
Yeah.
That's the crime. If you were saying it's a full feature game and we just had to raise prices, but that's not what they're doing.
What do you think of L.A. Noire? Flawed, but I love the acting in that game.
What was that?
L.A. Noire.
Oh, I finished that. Yes, that is probably the most recent game that I finished. I loved it. Yeah, I love that game. I played it on, I think, PS4.
Yeah, I re-downloaded like the remastered one. The technology hadn't caught up with the idea of it just yet because a lot of it's all wonky. The facials are really overly realistic, but then like the graphics don't quite catch up with their facial moves, so you almost get this like faded, like if their like head is there and they move, you almost get like I can't even think of the word.
Yeah, but it has
a shadow of where it used to be kind of thing.
But it has a very vintage look to it along with the good graphics. And plus they tried to take some of the stuff with, driving the car and the other things, kind of like a little bit of a Grand Theft Auto, watered down Grand Theft Auto type feel.
There's nothing really to hunt around though. It's not rewarding to explore.
I said watered down.
Map.
I didn't say it was exact. I just said you get a little taste of that. But it was a good game. It was a really good game to finish.
Yeah, the architecture's fantastic in the game, but there's like the world around you doesn't breathe, doesn't have a life of its own, like Grand Theft Auto 5, for example. And I thought, if they had GTA 5 with just the slightly upgraded graphics, so you don't have all these blurs when the face moves. Have you ever seen on YouTube where it's got the detective and he's just like schizophrenic with his question asking?
No, I haven't seen that.
It is funny. That's really funny. But there's so many familiar faces. I know a lot of them were in Mad Men, a lot of the same actors, and they all had to go to Australia, where it's like Bondi Games or something, where it is, and then they team a Rockstar. But I don't think we'll ever get a sequel to that, and I think that's such a shame, because I really enjoyed that game.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I mean, it was perfect for the time. If they can apply that to modern day police, that would be pretty cool.
Well, they wouldn't show up unless you write something mean on Twitter these days. So.
There could be, Thought Crime Noir.
Yeah, Thought Crime Noir 2025. Doesn't have to be in the future. Right, this is actually a follow-on. Daniel M. says, it's more of a gaming question, seeing how Stevie likes Madden. Did you ever try NFL Blitz on PlayStation 1 or GameCube? And if so, did you enjoy it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Blitz was awesome. Especially, I think I spoke about it before. Blitz gave you a totally different experience, obviously more violent, more kind of just out there with everything it did, more of an arcadey type thing. For some reason, it blew my mind that like a player would get injured, go on the sidelines. And I remember the first time this happened, it gave you a choice. You're either going to be out for like 2 quarters or the whole game if you just want to do regular rehab, or we can give you a shot of steroids and you're out for 1 play. I was like, oh my God. And it was gone before, in the next iteration of Blitz, it was gone. And I think Blitz actually for a time, maybe still now, it's a premium on that game because of things like that, cheating and doing things like that, which really like was crazy. So yeah, I never played it on the GameCube. At GameCube, it wasn't a system I really wanted, although Day of Reckoning I heard was amazing on GameCube. I stuck with PlayStation and then Xbox, and between those two.
Oh, dude, I had the GameCube. Man, I think the only game that I got that I didn't get involved with was Beautiful Joe. And it was like a cell shading game. And I know, was it Jet Set Radio?
Beautiful V,
yeah, it was
right?
called Beautiful, yeah, Beautiful Joe. That was actually worth something when I sold it. I never got on with that thing. There's another one. Metal Gear Solid 2, specifically. Or the remake of Metal Gear Solid 1 that was exclusive on the GameCube, which is worth a ton. Got another one for you that I love. Pikmin. What a game Pikmin was.
How do you spell that? I'm not familiar with that game.
What? Pikmin. Pikmin. And they're also in Super Smash Brothers, another great game if it's melee. the second one on the GameCube. I was a
But
big
is this a
GameCube
Nintendo
fan.
product?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You never
that's
played
why.
Smash Brothers?
I played Smash Brothers, but I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, dude. Man.
But
Pikmin's
Metal
great
Gear
game.
Solid, that sound effect on my fitness channel, when something's expensive, I use that sound effect. I'm like, whoa.
There's one more as well, and then we'll move on. The
How about Jeff Jarrett and
remaster.
Acclaim? Aha, my favorite game company now.
Man, that's... Oh, well, we've got another game company coming up in a second we want your opinion on. Resident Evil, the remaster. Me and my brother still say to each other, Jill, what is this place? It never fails to... Do you know what my biggest scare in gaming ever was Resident Evil 2, the first time you were introduced to the liquor.
Yeah.
Man.
I want to
I
get the
hate horror
MetaQuest
games.
3 just for that game, and also the Batman game that usually gets bundled in with it. That's my next thing, is that I don't want to go PSVR 2 because it's tethered and the games are expensive. The MetaQuest 3 seems to have, a good selection of games. I don't know why I like the Bouncer game. Approver denied. You ever see the...
That's so funny. And Drunken Bar Fight and all those ones are so funny. I told you, I got Drunken Bar Fight and I was steaming the first time I played it. That you've got these wands that you hold in your hands, and you can't see where you're going because you... Anyway, one, I gave myself horrible vomit.
motion sickness.
The motion sickness. And two, I started throwing kicks. You can't register your feet. And then three, I fell over my own sofa. And at that point, I was like, I'll save it to the morning.
All right, maybe I got to reconsider. I've already been injured enough. I don't need to be going through the window.
Oh, dude, yeah. You will as well. Someone tried to get me to play Resident Evil 7 on the headset, right? I didn't even get to the first monster, and I tapped out. I was like, no, because I'm a big girl. I hate horror films. I hate being scared. I couldn't play Mortal Kombat for years in case there was a fatality because I was such a wet.
You want to hear the two things that would be kind of, how can I put it, just a waste of money, but the biggest value ever if you play the game all the time? Playing Microsoft Flight Simulator or one of those games and using the yoke, the Logitech Velocity 1 yoke, or here's a combination for you. Since we both have PS5s, you have a PS10 though. Playing Gran Turismo 7 with the PSVR 2 and the steering wheel and the gear shifter and the pedals. You want to talk about a loadout for a game? There you go.
Would you ever do it? I know if you had the space and the money, I know you would. Would you get like a total 180 screen around you for driving?
I've already talked to my wife about that. She said, no, we don't have the room.
I don't blame her. Worms. Did you ever play Worms?
I did.
Armageddon or World Party?
Yep. And Earthworm Jim. Or is that his name? Earthworm Jim?
Yeah, but that's a 2D one. Apart
No,
from
what
the
I'm
3D
saying, I
one.
played, you reminded me of that game. We played a lot of games.
Okay,
Except
I'm going
for
to end with
Pikmin.
one, which I think it probably got to the States, but it was a Virgin Interactive game. And it was sponsored by like 7-Up. Cool Spot. As far as like platformers go, I really loved Cool Spot. Do you remember that?
I remember the game. I have not played it.
Okay, then. Well, we don't need to get into like Bubsy and stuff like that. We're going to go for the more niche platformers. So we're going to move on to one more gaming question. Trismagistus Magpie asks, how do you feel about Saudi Arabia buying EA, Electronic Arts? They own Madden.
Well, Madden can't get any worse or phone it in more every year. So hopefully the Saudis will scare EA Sports into creating a game like the greatest football game ever made, NFL 2K5. All-Pro 2K8 is also very good and very awesome. Honestly, I don't know what Saudi Arabia's play is. Is there any news attached to this? Like, I don't know what their play is except owning everything. Like you said, you called it sports washing. It's a good term. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, why did they buy EA? Outside of the fact that they've done the M&M, the turning people over, Vanilla Ice, I always say M&M, and shaking their pockets loose. They have fleeced the consumer based just on Madden alone, that they've been so profitable that Saudi Arabia, I guess, says we can buy them. But what's the play for buying a video game company?
Just buying existing properties known the world over to legitimize their own regime and get Saudi Arabia further in the minds of people in the West, I guess. That's basically it. They've got almost a bottomless well of money. Are you as... Because we criticise WWE for working with the Saudi Arabian regime, the government there, the Crown Prince and the Sports Authority and Turkey Al Sheikh and all that kind of thing. Do you hold EA to the same standard?
Yeah, EA's reputation has been destroyed for years. They don't care.
It's already in the toilet.
Yeah, we're going to just sell it. You think you're mad now? Watch this. Enjoy the show. Or enjoy the game. No, I think EA's been destroyed. Dude, there's people that make like Soft Drink TV and other people. They make a living off of bad reviews for Madden. Angry Joe. We always tune in his angry review of Madden, which is the same, just like the game. The review is the same every single year. So why not? They're already selling out the fans by microtransactions, this Ultimate Team crap, and taking things out that, quite frankly, even on the emulation, Madden 08 has more features than Madden 26. What are we doing here? They were the villain. They lived long enough to become the villain back in 08, 9, 10, when they bought the exclusive license, not because they wanted to put the best gaming product out there, but only to destroy 2K Sports. They did a WWE thing. We're not going to make our product better. We're just going to buy up everything and make everybody worse.
Speaking of which, what do you make of 2K games?
Saudi doesn't. Turkey doesn't like that.
Yeah, no, 2K. No, we've got to stop that. 2K games in general, because I used to love NBA 2K. Like I had 11. I was playing He's on Fire, Jam.
NBA Jam.
Yeah, and then there was I had NBA 96. And
let's go back further just to hold your thought.
Yeah.
One of the first games that was played online, 2 games I should say, NBA 2K1, World Series 2K, and 2K1. NFL 2K was back then. They had basketball, football, and baseball. I remember connecting a phone line, not even high-speed internet, a phone line to play people online. The Dreamcast was way ahead of the curve between that, another game that's not sports-related, Phantasy Star Online. You sent something to the chat yesterday. I played that for the Dreamcast. They had the online infrastructure in 2000, 2001. So 2K, way before Madden, was doing great work.
I think the first console to have internet capabilities was the SNES. And it might have only been Japanese versions in hotels or
that
something.
That big thing you plugged into the back, right?
I don't know. I think it might have even been these like hotel exclusive like Famicom things.
It was a Super Famicom, you're right.
Yeah, so you could like download games onto it or something. Because I know they tried it with the Nintendo 64, with the 64DD or whatever it was. What was that? That it was basically Japan exclusive with that giant gold man. And
I think the first thing that officially, Dreamcast was kind of official, but not advertising and wanting to sell something on the internet. The original Xbox with Xbox Live was the infrastructure of Microsoft making online play, but they had it with Windows and PC, and people were playing online before that.
So to get on my other point, PGA 2K21, I've played loads. I think the last basketball game I probably really got into was 16 or something. I tried a couple more, they weren't the same. But you can see year on year the microtransactions just get more and more out of hand. Who do you think is like the... And also every game is more and more similar to the preceding one. Who do you think is the worst offender for that, EA or 2K?
EA. 100% EA. You just described EA's business model, with Madden especially. Just nothing good. This, take 10 features away, but then by 2026, let's put two back. No. I mean, I don't know the exact number, but they removed features. They bought the license and had the ESPN presentation and never used it. That was what made NFL 2K5 just like, wow. Chris Berman, halftime show, real stats, things like that. No, I mean, everybody's offending now, but EA was the one that started this microtransactions, giving you less, making you pay for everything, these stupid Ultimate Team packs, just not for me.
The FIFA thing, I don't know if it's the same thing, but in FIFA, for years, you buy packs where you can use like a player once. I dropped out of FIFA so many years ago, so I don't understand these basically gambling loot box mechanics, where there have been lawsuits over this, promoting gambling to under 18s, and also having this base. It's the same actually with Counter-Strike. You know, where they've got like... It's almost... I think they get around gambling laws because it's somehow a lottery where you can get like certain desirable skins for guns and stuff, and then they can resell them on these sites and then, you know, come away with actual money at the end of it. CSGO, I think. But FIFA's really bad for it. For, you know, Ultimate Team and, you know, hopefully...
So it's just EA Sports across the board.
Exactly,
EA in general,
yeah.
because EA owns Call of Duty, right? Or Battlefield.
No, I think EA's Battlefield, Treyarch, who owns Call of Duty? Treyarch and a couple of others, I can't remember. Raven Software and one other, I think. Activision, maybe?
Yeah, but everybody's being bought up by Microsoft right now. I think Activision got bought by Microsoft. The gaming world, and with the recent release of a second price hike on Game Pass, because our last episode, my lower third, I called them out for that. You know, $30 a month to own nothing. And you're not getting anything except like Fortnite Crew and maybe a couple other things.
You know they're trying to say in the future that you will never actually own a digital copy of your game. You're merely leasing it for full price. And they can change it or take it away from you at any point in the terms and conditions.
Yeah, and there's another money-making thing with EA with Madden, if people didn't notice, that when you go into Madden, you have advertisers that rotate around in the stadiums. Have you noticed that with FIFA?
Oh, no. I've not played it in
they've done that for years, where whoever's paying for advertisements in the game, they upload the code, and now the new advertiser is on the Tron or these little things around the stadium.
We're going to move on, but once again, I was sort of thinking, man, why are we doing a gaming podcast?
That was fun.
Okay, then, we just had a quick break then, and Stevie just said, please, more gaming questions in the future. So we might have to do that occasionally, because is there anything we get more enthusiastic about?
Yeah, well, enthusiastic but not stressed out. Production, I get enthusiastic and then I get stressed out. But we even said, why do we not have a gaming channel or a gaming podcast? That would be fun.
I just wouldn't be good enough at it. I don't have the knowledge for it. I mean, you look at someone, well, not IGN, but if you look at some of these gaming things, and they can pull out name. I never had a huge library of games ever. Like, we had like a little finite amount. They were mostly the really good ones. It's like there's only a couple of games that I got into after, like, years after they released, like Super Smash TV or something. Or, what was that 2D one that's really good, and he's got the gun and you can... And there's like 4 different power-ups, so you can combine the power-ups to make like 16 different kinds of bullets. And
it's not Perfect Dark, is it?
It's going to bug me now. No, it's 2D. There's like early 90s.
Well, I was going to say, maybe we just can reenact like the Bret Owen cage match with video games, or do something like that, a play along. People to do that kind of stuff. Anything. We want to play more video games, and we keep making up excuses. But now, like that we talked about it, I want to like pick up the Steam Deck, or we've never played online, although we both got Sony and we have PS Plus.
I'm just never on. It just
no, that's what I mean. We need to do it.
Hey, yeah, we will do. We need to, because I think I can record straight off the PlayStation and upload direct to YouTube, but I don't know how we get our faces on it.
No, I would just capture the game here in the office with our game capture card and ready to go.
Can you do it where you get the HDMI and sort of like have a game capture card in the HDMI?
Yeah, I go through an AverMedia Live game. That's how I got the smart board on Ecamm Live, and we can record on Ecamm Live and have this. And I can have the ISOs and the scenes. Oh, we can do it.
Oh, well, you know what you should do then? Is if I just set up a camera or even my phone or something, and then you just hook it up to an OBS, to the OBS or whatever, and then you can record everything in yourself, and then just have my...
Yeah, that's good. You're a virtual camera. I can do that, yeah.
Ooh,
that's possible.
Consider that then.
My OCD pays off.
Next question. We need that sponsor. Right. Dean Kind writes in. So from the highs of talking about the games to something a bit more serious, I guess. Dean Kind says, a lot of fans these days dismiss people who weren't main event stars as if that automatically means that they don't understand the business. To me, that feels short-sighted. Sir Alex Ferguson, Manchester United manager long-term, of course, for example, didn't have a jaw-dropping playing football career, but became one of the greatest managers ever. Meanwhile, some world-class players have been bang-on average managers. By that logic, if people only want to listen to top stars like Hulk Hogan, The Rock, or Steve Austin, why didn't those guys become the main trainers? Who taught them? Often it was veteran workers lower on the card passing on knowledge. Why do you think the community so often ignores the insides of wrestlers who weren't pushed to the top, even though they frequently knew the business inside? I think it's because they're stupid. Or they don't understand the business at all.
Well, I mean, but that keeps the wrestling business thriving and growing, or people watching, because you need to have your favorites. And obviously there's people that are not going to be, not everybody can be a main eventer, whether by talent, ability, skill, or the fact that the office politically doesn't see them that way. That's usually the part. There's people that you can argue throughout history, how did that person become a perennial main eventer? But the politics or the subjective view of somebody in the office and in power, maybe the booker, maybe somebody heavily influential on the booker or promoter, will do that. This is definitely something that we talked about last week. Perception's reality. So the perception of me becomes the reality of the fans. What made me have a job in WWE for 10 years and have a job for most of my career is exactly why fans view me with the same label. In other words, I got a lot of steady work. I'm always called on. I'm reliable. And I also know kind of where I am placed, at least in a match, in the business, on the card, whatever it might be. Now, if I'm given the opportunity, like we talked about last week, with a Wildcat Sports, to be a champion, to be two different champions in the company, to be able to carry a storyline with the promoter's son and do stuff like that, when I'm given the opportunity, I can shine and I can be put in that light, but also realizing I'm fighting the stereotype and the label from WWE. As a matter of fact, we talked about it on the Russo show yesterday. They were talking about different characters. I love the Dr. Stevie character more than anyone, because you know what it did, James? It made everything else be erased. If I just came in as Stevie Richards, like, this guy lost everybody for like the last 7 years. But I recreated that character from scratch, completely leaving the old Stevie Richards stink off of the current character, and was able to do that and be a viable character that people still remember today. And by the way, never even scratched the surface, because the flavor of the month EV2 came along. I could have did a lot more really good quality work as Stevie Richards, or as Dr. Stevie. And the reason being, also, even within the vein of being pushed as Dr. Stevie, my job was to get baby faces over. Now, I needed to get heat on me first to get Abyss over, Kurt Angle, Mick Foley, whoever crossed our path. So with that being said, all these experiences of not being a top guy all the time and not being favored and people telling me how great I am 24/7, I had to learn everything the hard way. I learned the lessons about being up here and down here and everywhere in between. That factors into a much fuller career that I could speak from a thing, because nothing was ever just like, let's let the agent handle it. Let's let the writer handle it. I have a writer, and the writer is going to handle it. I needed to do my own creative. I needed to politic for myself. I needed to do whatever I could. If they weren't going to get me over on a sheet of paper during that match, how can I get myself over? This is my WrestleMania moment. Things like that. I might be a little bit all over the place, but this is a stereotype and a label that we still fight right now with the show. There's guaranteed there's going to be a comment, if not 5 or 10, about, what does this guy know? He's just a jobber. That's all he's ever been. And guess what? That's what that they're suspending disbelief, believing that I wasn't as good as the people I was wrestling. That's the creative process. I'm collateral damage for the creative process to get somebody over and make them a star.
Yeah, on something I was wanting to mention there. Do you think that, and I've got some outlier examples, but for the most part, all the megastars out there, you're right, they never really trained anyone. They never really gave back to the business. Not that many of them did anyway, in that respect. I mean, you've Ric Flair's, your Hulk Hogan's, even The Rock and Steve Austin. They never really, helped prepare. I'm sure they've talked to people, given advice and stuff, but it seems that once their run is over, they move on and do something else. Is there something about most main event players where they are just more self-absorbed, and not in a bad way, because you have to take yourself seriously and protect your own business? But does that stop most of them giving back? I mean, there's some outliers here. Once again, CM Punk, he wants to go to NXT when his career's over. Bret Hart, he trained people during his active wrestling career. Shawn Michaels, you could argue, he's in NXT
Brian
now.
Danielson, yeah, and Brian
Danielson, yeah. I know, I was thinking as a main eventer, someone like Brian Danielson would be an outlier because he was a main event star, but he's someone who really wants to give back, kind of thing. And I think maybe more people these days do, but in the old days, what was it about main event stars that basically they're out? Are they just more out for themselves than the average
Well, that's
wrestler?
the point of the business. You're an independent contractor, and you're basically out for yourself. This is why I said last week about Triple H and Shawn Michaels to a degree. Maybe Shawn can train people. Hunter would make a great trainer. Taker, Austin, Rocky, whoever it might be, they can make a great trainer to train you how to wrestle. The problem is, when you get into, I know how to get myself over, I know how to politic, I know how to be my own independent contractor, you don't know. I've been in there, and most of these main event guys will just look and say to Vince, nah, I don't think so, but never give any kind of valid reasoning about what do you see that doesn't make this guy or girl click with the crowd or you, and you see nothing, and that'll kill a career. And to me, that's severely unfair. You could at least we try to give reasoning for why I feel the way I feel. You can agree or disagree, but there's reasoning behind it. There's experience, perspective, and all that stuff. If you want to go down right down to the nuts and bolts of it, if you're being like Steve Austin, $10 million royalty checks, not even your guarantee, you're going to go train somebody, you're not going to get paid $10 million to do that. It could just be a money thing, but you have limited time, limited energy, limited mental energy, physical energy. You have to learn where you want to spend it. Am I going to go to a convention and make $25,000 in a bag of cash? Or am I going to go train these people and charge them $3,000 and I have to be there 4 to 6 hours a night?
Going on, I guess,
let me
more
ask
of the
you
point
a question, if I could, please, and everybody out there. How can guys like me and other people, you can even, for a weird reason, somebody like Dolph Ziggler has always been stuck within a creative corner. He's gotten world title shots. He's always been figured in, but Dolph should have done a lot more. And he's done a ton, but he should have been given more opportunities and more time to be in those top spots. You could put a label on anybody, but what do you think it would have to take to escape that label? Because quite frankly, I think the business ignores minds that could really make the business better based off of these labels. Because I've said it a million times, the biggest marks are in the office that believe that BS.
I don't know, because I think as far as YouTubers go, Maven gets it as bad as you do, as far as, well, what does this guy know? He was a jobber, etc. But then you get the same thing as well. And do you just think that people are working themselves into a shoot because basically a man with a pencil said that you were losing a fake match that night more than, I'm not saying Steve Austin or something, because that's a bad example, but Batista.
But it's a necessary evil to keep the business running. You can't have we've seen with 50-50 booking, not everybody can be stars on the same level and exchange wins and losses every week.
No, but that's not the point, though. I think far more people would look at Batista and value his opinion more than yours, even though he's got far less experience, because he won more fake matches than you did, even though you're both doing the exact same thing, only you were doing it 3 times longer and far more breadth of experience with more promotion.
Yeah, you can take anybody and say, if they won more, I gave some examples last week that this person knows more than I do because they won more fake matches and won titles or got into WrestleMania. I don't think that's ever going to change, but I said it last week and I repeat it this week. It's hurting the business. And I'm not the one going, I'm perfectly happy on this pirate ship with you and everybody watching out there. But I'm saying you ignore a lot of, and this could be the agents in WWE that they give valuable feedback and they're trying to help. We've talked about AEW agents in the past that have tried to help, but they weren't viewed in that way because maybe they didn't win enough world titles, or maybe the person's in the main event in the company and you were never a main eventer. There's always this ad hominem attack that Triple H used to use and other people. This guy can't draw. How do you know if you don't push the guy and throw him into a spot and test him? It's just a dismissive type of attitude that hurts the business. And quite frankly, I'm not trying to fight it anymore. I'm happy doing this. And people can come in with low expectations that somebody that lost all these matches, and is, like I said last week too, you know about technology. How can a guy that loses fake matches know how to run Ecamm Live? This does not compute, Will Robinson. I'm old enough to remember that. But if it doesn't change, that's fine. If it makes you feel better to make that comment, go right ahead. Because I'm going to still make this episode. I'm going to make future episodes. I'm still going to make the content that fulfills me. And I want to educate and empower people. If 99 wrestlers won't listen to me giving them sound advice to avoid an injury, but one does, perfectly fine with me.
And also the 1.2 million unique viewers in the last 2 weeks. Doesn't hurt either.
Doesn't hurt. I appreciate that. I mean, that's people seeing past that, or curiosity about, oh my God, what's this stupid guy have to say? And then they're like, he's only half stupid, not fully stupid.
Next question. We've only got a couple more left, then we're going to be doing the news. G-Money says, can you give us a list of the stiffest punchers you ever worked with and their style of punching that seemed to connect with every throw? So have you got a list for us,
I got
Stevie?
two people off the top of my mind. Terry Funk and Christian. Terry Funk, two different kinds of punchers. I'm not saying they would knock you out with them, but it's like, oh man, why did you have to hit me that hard? Christian is the one, at least in my era, that birthed the term rubber mallet. He would rubber mallet you on the forehead. And he's not the only one, but he's the one that really stuck out to me when he would do that. Terry Funk, besides being a southpaw, which is a whole different world if you're inexperienced, you're looking to sell this way and it's coming this way, he would cup that hand and you could see, you're like, man, Terry's punches look real. They are real. He's giving you that like palm strike to the carotid artery and you're like, this hurts. I mean, I used to get my neck bruised up. It would never hurt to a point outside of being annoyed, but also when people punch you that stiff, it kind of takes away the fear. You're like, okay, I can lay a little bit into this guy and he can't complain because he's giving it to me right now. Who else? As far as punchers, JBL's punches were always there, but never super stiff. Austin, I did a couple things with Austin and was like, he was like the Terry Funk type of punches. For the most part, if you're on TV and pay-per-view, there's going to be times and places where there's going to be live rounds. For example, when I worked Raven and we would go outside, back then the rule was the people are right here. You need to lay it in. Funk would do the same thing. Other people, I'm trying to think of people that would throw notoriously stiff punches at me. And it was just kind of, nobody ever threw a punch at me outside of a Polish hammer that would break my face, break my nose, knock my teeth out. Everybody knew how to hit hard in safe places. I'll tell you what, some guys like Regal with the forearms would be like, whoa, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Nothing malicious, but it'd be like, dude, he could throw. Like this could, if he really wanted to knock me out, he could knock me out.
Who would you say, if I said a Bob Holly or someone that I said, man, those punches look like they were killing you, and you would say, I never felt a thing. Who were the guys who would fit that mold the most? Like they never even touch you, yet they still look great.
Taker would be one. Who else? Bobby Eaton from Viewing would be one. Experiencing Brad Armstrong. Brad Armstrong with that uppercut. Ever see him when he did that big uppercut, which I would throw in with that? Just about everybody in Memphis. I worked Jerry Lawler. He never got you at anything. He'd slap your side as he punched you to make that sound. That would be if you watch old Memphis and Lawler working somebody over in the corner, he would slap their side while he punched them. And you'd be like, ow, as he's punching you. So I'd throw every Memphis wrestler as the best punchers and never feeling a thing. Because based on Lawler, you got to throw Jeff Jarrett in there. Billy Joe Travis had a great uppercut. A lot of other people like that. Dutch had a great punch. I'd throw Orndorff in there because he threw that kind of uppercut punch in there. I can't think of a whole lot of people where they hit me and I was like, I just never want to work this person again. I've been very fortunate with that.
See, I genuinely thought you would have said Sandman.
No, Sandman threw a lighter rubber mallet because he would grab you and throw an overhand. He'd throw a lighter rubber mallet than Christian. So Sandman was a lighter worker than Christian.
Of all the people, why Christian? I can't square that circle of why.
I mean, Bob
Christian
Holly would throw the rubber mallet at times, but Christian, for some reason, it was just a dead on. And it was only like 2 or 3 of them, but they always stood out to me. And people told me before and after, oh, that's the rubber mallet. That's where it didn't come from me. It came from like Edge and other people that work. You know who's somebody that hits very hard, but it's not something that hurts you? Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's punches are pretty heavy, but it never gave me a headache or made, I saw stars or Tweety birds, but it was like, ooh, it made me sell. I was like, ooh, that hurt.
Who did you model your punches after? Because I imagine that every wrestler has someone who they copy, basically, and then, you just get comfortable doing that way. But who was somebody that you basically stole the punching style
Mine
from?
was a mixture between Jeff Jarrett, Billy Joe Travis, and Raven. Slight uppercuts, trying to hit here. Sometimes I'd do the Bobby Eaton, which I never did as good as him, slapping the arm. As a matter of fact, there's a trading card. I have it. They gave me one framed in like that crystal type material. I'm punching Big Vito, and I'm slapping, and I miss him by a mile. So they caught it at the worst possible time. But those would be the 3 people, and you could throw Lawler and stuff, but those are the people, when I watched them, I was like, wow, especially Billy Joe Travis' big uppercuts were just awesome. The best sell of that uppercut punch, I'll give you a little trivia. Who do you think it is? Memphis uppercut punch, big bump.
You're not going to say Dundee or somebody, are you?
You're close. Eddie Gilbert. Big, and Razor Ramon, I think, took his big bumps from Eddie Gilbert. When he would take the big stunner bump and stuff, I think that was an Eddie Gilbert bump.
Do you remember an incident or a time where you were punching somebody and just somehow I don't know if they walked into it or you just misgauged the distance or whatever, but you just absolutely clumped somebody by accident?
Never that I can think of. I've missed them. I've mistimed it on the distance. Oh, by the way, we're talking about punches. Big shout out. Rest in peace, Sabu. 1, 2, sorry. There we go. 1, 2, sorry.
I'm trying to think just because you mentioned Razor Ramon, and you must have seen that clip with Matt Hardy when he was just doing enhancement work, and Razor messes up.
No, I never saw that.
And he messes up, and I don't know if he's trying to go for the Razor's Edge or something like that, and he drops him or he doesn't get the timing right, and it wasn't Matt's fault. So Razor just picks him up and just goes and just whacks
him,
and then goes for the Razor. No, he smacks him across the face, I think. And then he picks him up and goes for it again and lands it. But Razor's just like, oh, I'm sorry, but I had to do that just to save face, basically.
Well, if he's a heel, it makes a little bit of sense.
No, it was babyface. Don't you worry about that. He was a babyface.
We should include that for the next Botch Watch. We're due for one.
Yeah, dude, we haven't done one like for over
We
half
gotta
a
do
year
it.
now. We did one and we lost it.
Botch
by
Watch
the
4.
way.
The Voyage
Yeah.
Home. The Botch Home.
The Botch Home. I love that one as well. I know it's one of the... Yeah, it's the even number ones are good, aren't they? So, once again, just to reiterate, and apart from the stiffest, but just the best puncher of all time to wrap this up.
Oh, wow. That's the toughest question ever. The best puncher of all time, good Lord, has to be Jerry Lawler. Because the way his, whatever you call it, it's kind of like a Belichick learning tree. When you came through Memphis, something about your work changed, especially your punching. It looked dirty. It looked like a fight. And it were the lightest punches you'll ever feel.
We've got 2 more fan questions, and we're going to get to the news. James B. asks, is Stevie aware that he's the reason we got the Dicks tag team in WWE? They were originally going to be called the Swinging Richards, but that was nixed due to sounding too similar to Steven Richards. I love you, Stevie. Okay, is this actually true?
Well, I love you too, James, and that is definitely urban legend. That's not true, because if they were going to name them the Swinging Richards, what do you think I would politic for, James?
Whatever you do, please call them the the Swinging Richards, and then they probably wouldn't have done.
Well, that would be a good way to get, if they said we don't want the name, that would be good. I would politic to be their manager and just go with the flow, right?
Sounds like a dancing character, the Swinging Richards.
But they
Like
were
poodle
doing it. They
skirts and the
were
whole
doing
thing.
like a Chippendales gimmick.
No, I'm talking like 50s swinging, I don't know.
Like Rock Around the Clock and all that stuff.
Yeah, like rockabilly kind of thing.
Oh God,
The Dicks,
don't
man.
bring that up to Billy Gunn. Good Lord.
Oh, God damn. Okay, who's the worst tag team? Gemini or the Dicks? As far as just a tag team name that would never get over in a million years.
Gemini, because people don't, half the wrestling fans were like, well, what does it mean, Gemini? Gemini, it's a sign for twins. They're twin. It's too much explanation right there. The Swinging Dicks or the Dicks, you're like, haha, Vince McMahon joke. Got it.
What did Nova think about Gemini? Because I know he's still friends with Nova, but what did he think about being
I
settled
honestly
with those
don't
guys?
know. I know he tried to coach them and tried to bring them along. They just didn't seem to, they never really seemed to ever get it. And they had the Vince McMahon airport test look. They were big guys, bald guys. I don't know why they never translated.
Okay, last fan question. I think this is a very interesting one. Garm V's has asked, if you've ever left the wrestling bubble for an extended period of time, how did you take it mentally? How is it also being a part of the bubble once more, but not as a performer, but instead providing commentary? I've added a load of follow-up questions here. But essentially, the wrestling bubble, when you leave the wrestling bubble for a long period of time, what changes in your brain that makes you realize you're in a bubble in the first place?
Well, I think number one would be what we talk about and joke about off camera more, and the terminology starts to be erased from your vocabulary. You don't say gimmick and sabida and this thing. When you don't name something, you don't know what it is. For a time, you're like, what's that gimmick there? I don't know if they do it in modern days, but the terminology, kayfabe, all this stuff, it's a work, it's a shoot, that starts to go away. And I think from our show, you can tell we don't use it really as much as possible. We might slip up or do whatever. You might say the brother line when you're interviewing somebody, that kind of thing.
The only time I did that was with Mosh.
I know, I laugh
Headbanger
about
Mosh. Because the only reason I did it was because I said, after we were just chatting beforehand, and I went, are you someone who uses the word brother 20 times a day? And he went, me and Thrasher, we've been in the business how many years? We've never called each other that. I don't get it. Then the first thing I sort of, how you doing, brother?
Yeah. It's just like it's something in the back of your mind. You had to do it because don't press that button, but you press the button, right? So,
Yeah.
So what escapes you too is the Stockholm Syndrome, but it doesn't escape you to a certain extent. I'm self-aware. Last episode, we talked about Taker, Michelle of the podcast, and I said, I'm going to let you know right now, the Stockholm Syndrome is real. And as I say this and look at the show notes, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get heat with Taker. I'm going to get heat with the locker room. And Matt Morgan, 20 years removed, left a comment on that video saying, I still feel that way. I'm the mayor of a city 20 years later, and I still get that dip in and dip out of Stockholm Syndrome. Now, just because I said that doesn't mean I care what Taker thinks or says, or I'm not going to give my true, honest opinion and perspective. But the bubble is real, because guess what? When I do a clip, friends will reach out that are current wrestlers, or friends will reach out that are after their TV careers and just doing indies and say, dude, you got to stop. You're never going to get booked again. I was like, you don't understand. I don't want to get booked again. I'm fine. I don't want to go back into the bubble. But I will get more text than not, that Taker one especially. Dude, when Taker finds out, man, I go, well, did you watch the whole clip? Oh, no, I just read the title. You're done. Watch the clip. Or, you know what, dude, you're never going to get in the Hall of Fame. You're never going to get this. You're never going to get that. That's being in the bubble. That's being held hostage by the potential phone call. There's a lot of Dennis Stamps running around. But I'm telling you right now, outside of a planned parody open on a future episode, take a drink, you will not see me on the trampoline waiting for the call. And yes, we do have that opening planned.
The Dennis Stamp thing, for people who don't know, it was from a segment on a documentary over 25 years called Beyond the Mat. He was a wrestler in his early 50s, kind of looked like Andy Serkis, if you remember the actor. But like a larger, obviously more overweight one. And there was a bit where he was like, you never know when Vince McMahon is going to call, or you never know when you're going to get the call to go back in the business. He was in his early 50s, hadn't wrestled in, I don't know, a decade, 15 years plus. And he was on a trampoline with like these, 5-pound dumbbells,
baby bells,
let's say.
They call them.
These baby bells, doing that, bouncing on a trampoline in his trunks for the camera. And he was still so far removed from the business, doing a painting job or whatever he was doing. He was still in the bubble, hoping for that call. He never worked for Vince, as far as I can tell, unless he did a couple of shots here and there. And he still held on to that. And I think how many people in the business of a similar age, because he'll be a similar age to you now. How many people in their 50s who were kind of removed from WWE had some kind of run? You don't. But how many people do? What percentage? You never know.
I would say the high 90s. I would really say it's a lot of people, because there's a lot of the business and in general, a lot of things in entertainment and even sports, more so entertainment, is based on this term, weaponized hope. They dangle that carrot. That's a real thing, dangling the carrot, putting the brass ring in front of you, but you never reach it, you never get the carrot. That's a real thing. That one more run mentality. If I have one more run, I can make money and then retire. Very few people ever leave on their own terms. I've never left a company outside of TNA, but it wasn't really on my own terms. It was like, I'm going to leave before they release me, because I'm not going to get released by this company. No way. So these things happen. And guess what? Nobody ever retires in a way. You just stop getting booked. And then you wait and you wait and you wait. And the ones that move on, people almost, I think, resent them in a way. Oh, you think you're better than everybody? Hey, you think you're better than everybody else? Tony Gurria thinks you're, whatever. But there is this resentment, but it's sort of, in a way, jealousy. You know what I get? Here's what I get more than anybody. And these are friends of mine that I still communicate with that are in or out of the business to a certain degree. Whenever I talk and I say, they go, and guess what? A lot of times these people are in the bubble. You know what? The one question that I never even ask you when they call or text or anything like that? How are you? How are you doing? How's the family? What's going? There's never the normal, it's right into it. Oh, I got a booking. I got this. This promoter is saying, oh, this indie promoter under WrestleMania. But guess what? You're on the phone with them entertaining this buffoonery of their indie show being their WrestleMania. But you know what they say to me about the show and the success of this, or the fitness business or anything? Man, you just got lucky. I was like, you have no idea who I am, do you? The level of obsession to do this. And I've been trying to do this since 2002. Create content, create a brand, do the Madden Telestrator. I'm not puffing my own chest, but it is a wake-up call of just how much out of the wrestling bubble I am whenever somebody calls and I'm like, dude, I don't have time. I don't have 30 minutes to listen to, man, why won't they call me? Why won't they push me? Why won't they? And I've been there. But life is too short. I don't have enough energy. I got a business to run. I got brands to run. You've taught me that in a way that, like, dude, we got to focus on this and do things that are worth business. I don't know if that makes sense, but the way I look at it is I see that and I'm like, I want to help the other wrestlers and say there is a path after wrestling to actually make more money than you made in wrestling. There's a path to be ultra fulfilled and never age out and actually never take a bump.
Yeah, but few people can do it like we do it, or like Maven does it, or like Jim Cornette does it. There's very few people who can do it.
It doesn't even have to be podcasting. You can train people. You can, you can say, hey, listen, I can do cameos better than anybody else. I can do this, or maybe, I don't know. But within the wrestling business, and especially a place like WWE, it's so incestuous right now, and everybody's just, the only people that are getting chances are going to be offspring of the current legends or other people that they pick from outside. I tell people, young people that want to wrestle, how do I get over in wrestling? How do I become a star the fastest way possible? And I say, become a star somewhere else. And then they will bring you in and treat you better.
There's a couple of examples I want to bring up. Recently, we talked about this last week, I think. Jasmine Nix, who was an NXT. I mean, she was like a fairly low-level name in NXT, and she quit because she wasn't getting paid enough and turning down other opportunities that would pay her more and get her injured a lot less.
Could I stop you right there? I know you're going to say that. I just want to insert this, please. So she basically treated the business like a business and said...
Would you believe?
No, I'm just saying...
Yeah, and of all people, Booker T, who's with WWE, actually stuck up for it and said, yeah, good for you. Bubba Ray, who I guess wants to really be involved with WWE, even more than he is now, I guess, with LFG and whatnot, was like, oh, she didn't have enough passion for the business. It was like, well, so what?
So basically,
what do you mean, so what?
So basically, she's not a big enough mark for them to take advantage of her. That's what it means.
Absolutely. And here's something else, another one, the most famous example of somebody moving on with their lives and getting nothing but grief from fans and wrestlers. Who is it?
Ultimate Warrior.
No, even more.
Really?
Shane Douglas.
Oh, yeah. That irks me to no end now that you just reminded me of that. The Flair thing to make fun of a guy going through manager training in Target, that's the twisted world of wrestling. Hey, I've said it before. People think I was dying from something, but healthy is sick. Like, I'm healthy now. I was obviously a little underweight. But if I'm not the size of The Rock, now they think Rock is sick when I think he looks pretty healthy.
So just for people who don't know, Shane took a job and a managerial role in Target. It paid really well, had really great benefits. And then Ric Flair, of all people, that bastion of all that is good in pro wrestling, was making fun of him in various forms, but mostly on a WWE Legends of Wrestling Roundtable episode. And he was next to Mick Foley. He took, and Mick and Rick had, it rhymes, had like made up since their fallout, years earlier, where they were taking shots at each other in their own books and everything. And he talked down to Mick like he was a piece of crap on his shoe. And then he was talking down Shane. Had nothing to do with Shane that they were talking about. He just wanted to mention it just to get a shot in. I was like, well, where's Shane now? He's happy and healthy and whatever, and you can't, I don't know if Rick's happy, but you can't call him particularly healthy.
Ric Flair is the prime example, the extreme prime example of somebody that can never wanted to escape the wrestling bubble. If you called him Richard Flair, he would probably lose his mind.
I've got a few follow-up questions then. How does wrestling sort of mess you up as far as like giving you unrealistic expectations of yourself or makes you act differently from societal norms? I'm not just saying, in some of the words you like. Kevin Nash actually had a really good example. Is when he got back with his family after a trip on the road, he couldn't stop swearing, and apparently he still can't stop swearing. Have you ever heard his podcast? Have you ever heard me read a quote from him? Jiminy Christmas! But it's like those little things like that sort of change the fundamental way you think or speak, that kind of thing.
Well, I think the number one thing is the word I would use, and this happens early in the business. You sit there and you work a match, you're totally doing what you want to do, you work 10 minutes, and even on the indies, you get handed $100. And you're back in the day, and you're like, well, I just made $100 for working 10 minutes. You get snake bitten. In other words, I've brought this example up in this progression or regression. The wrestling business teaches you how to be as lazy as possible and make the most amount of money. How it translates into the real world, it's not so great because you now have to work hard. And that's why I said my career was a blessing. Nothing came easy. As a matter of fact, the harder I worked, the output and the results were less, almost like a rib. So my work ethic had stayed strong when, like I said about WCW, if they paid me to sit home, they kept giving me raises. And then I wanted to go to WWE and they gave me a pay cut. I'd be like, I deserve more. I'm entitled to more. Man, beginning of the end right there. It's a really slippery slope that what makes you the most over in wrestling is the hardest post-wrestling chapters of your life because you become lazy and you want that quick fix. And you're like, after a while, like I mentioned, the people I know that talk to these indie promoters for weeks or months up leading up to the show. You can get $500 to work, but then you're flying and driving and staying in a hotel, and then all those hours talking to the promoter leading up to the show. How much you're working less for less hourly wage than at Walmart or Target. Think about that. People say, I just worked 10 minutes and I got $500. But to me, I look at it like when someone tries to book me and I go, okay, you want me for a signing? Then I got to fly out the next day, but I got to fly in the night before. I'm leaving my 2 businesses and my family for almost 3 days. That doesn't translate into enough money. It's still a gift in a way, but I make more money, as I say, fostering and cultivating things right here in my own home and garage.
Do you think that the pro wrestling business, unless you're in, I don't know, somewhere in corporate America, let's say you had a job there instead, do you think the pro wrestling business rendered you more liable to be taken advantage of rather than if you had just a regular blue or white collar job, I guess? Because you're constantly negotiating with very many unscrupulous people who constantly want to undercut you or whatever else it is. And because you want to remain in the pro wrestling business, you kind of eat crap and like it, I guess, to sort of stay in. Do you find that the wrestling business renders you more liable to be taken advantage of in that way compared to a regular job?
You know what the beauty about that question is? There's a lot of people that comment and say that the career I had and things that happen to me and things I share, they mirror corporate America. And I do make that analogy sometimes. There's plenty of people everywhere like that. In wrestling, it's just they're more concentrated, they're more in control of your life and future, and they never seem to go away. They're always in power. Like since the day I got into the business, WWE has 2 of the guys that have been there all along, Bruce Pritchard and Michael Hayes, Triple H, other people. People keep that position, and people seem to fail upwards. In other words, the business is weird because in pro sports, we saw it in football just this past week. If the team's not doing well and not drawing wins or ratings or whatever you want to call it, they fire the coach, the general manager. Maybe they even get new ownership sometimes. And sometimes they release the players. But in wrestling, we got to cut 15 NXT people, but keep the people that picked them and trained them in place. But yeah, I have to sit back I've always had to sit back for 3 decades or more and look at these people, and they say, these are good people you need to look up to. These are the people in control of your future. These are the locker room leaders. These are solid citizens you need to pattern your life after. I'm like, no effing way. but I have to act like they are. And then when I get out of the wrestling bubble, I'm like, thank God I don't have to gaslight myself anymore. I was being gaslit and gaslighting myself before gaslighting was a term. To convince myself, yeah, I mean, they're pretty much a piece of you know what, but they're in control and I have to act like they're good people. Nah. As Austin would say, nah, not anymore.
One more thing to wrap this up. How's wrestling changed you positively as far as, I don't know, building confidence? I don't know if it got you more into fitness than you otherwise would have been. Everything from public speaking to, poise, anything like that. Things that you can say that wrestling gave you that another job probably wouldn't.
Yeah, wrestling gave me much more, actually, now that you put it that way, that I can carry for the rest of my life with this show and whatever I do. Work ethic, independent contractor. It doesn't freak me out to be my own accountant, my own travel agent, my own personal trainer, my own person that makes my itinerary, my own basically business manager as well. I did all that, learned all that. And just like the tech channel, when I did it, the knowledge I learned from wrestling and all the things along the line that at the time looked like abject failures provided the foundation that is carrying me now to make life a lot easier. I'm the one that makes life a lot harder right now with OCD. But yeah, the business gave public speaking, doing this, being comfortable. Now, sometimes I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes I have to mentally F with myself, and I have to become Stevie Richards when I'm talking to a potential collaboration brand or a sponsor. Michael Mann is still a very shy, introverted person. I know I sound insane. I have to become the character to shed all the insecurities and the things of self-esteem that Michael Mann still lacks. Now, I don't lack confidence. I'm comfortable with myself. But if I want to, say, perform, say, right now, I have to kind of lean into the character a little bit to overcome those bouts of self-doubt. See, that rhymes too.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your questions. We're not going to do one. I think we'll do one in about a month's time, another fan question thing. And once again, thank you all the hundreds and hundreds of people who wrote in the last time we asked questions. Again, we'll do another one in a month or two and solicit more, so we've got an evergreen, fresh amount of stuff coming in. We'll use some of your old ones as well, I promise. We're going to get into a bit of news, or one bit of news and a couple of what went wrongs. You probably can already guess what the what went wrongs are going to be. Very, very highly publicized, one from WWE and AEW. But first, we have to talk about Raven. Raven was on Ariel Helwani's show a few days ago as we record this. He actually reiterated that he was dealing with early onset Parkinson's disease. He'd actually mentioned this maybe a month prior on, I think, Matt Cardona's show with his group. But anyway, it sort of went under the radar, but the Ariel Helwani news has made it a lot more public. Here's the quote. I'm content, or more basically as content as I've ever been, other than this stupid tremor I got from the Parkinson's. I got early onset Parkinson's, so if you see me tremor, that's why. But other than that, I don't think it really touches on enough of my current life to do any damage to it. I'm lucky it hasn't affected me too bad. It's just when I get anxious, the tremor gets worse, or when I'm really tired and I have a sleep disorder. But look, you've got to pay the piper sometimes. You got to for all the drugs and alcohol and chair shots I took to the head. You got to pay for the damage at some point. And when asked, is this related to your career, Raven says, oh, of course, absolutely, yeah.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say I hope Scotty, that's his real name, Raven, really doesn't have any acceleration of the symptoms for a very, very long time. Hopefully this is all it's going to be. It's never going to progress. I know the chances of that, unless there's medication that can catch it early. I have a family member that has it, so I know how during the course of the day, and any stress, anything that causes anxiety, it ramps it up, man. And if you don't have early onset, it's very visible and it's scary to watch. And you can't do anything about it. It's a terrible disease. I hope the Michael J. Fox Foundation and all the charities really do end something as terrible as this. It's right up there with CTE, dementia, Alzheimer's. These terribly debilitating diseases just need to be eradicated. And for Raven to claim that it had to do with the partying, it had to do with the career, we're going to get to the partying part of that. Nobody knows. Nobody really knows for sure. It doesn't help, but nobody knows for sure what the trigger is when you get it. There's people that are very young people that get this, and then there's people that never get it who have similar type of lives. You can talk about football players that get early onset dementia, CTE from strikes, and then there's players that have played 15, 20 years, and they might have some prices they pay, but they're nowhere near what that is. It's mystifying. It's terrifying that any one of us at any point could just get early onset dementia, CTE, Parkinson's, or any other type of thing for taking these kinds of shots. Whether you took one chair shot to the head or 1,000, nobody knows where these symptoms are triggered and what happens with that. But like I said, first and foremost, hopefully this is it for Raven, that it doesn't get any worse, or he's taking medication to manage it so it does not progress.
We'll talk more about Raven's health in a minute. Very specifically, early onset. So I believe he's diagnosed years ago, because normally early onset counts as 50 or under. So he would have had to have been diagnosed over 10 years ago, I guess. Early onset actually advances less quickly than regular Parkinson's if you're older, I guess. Sort of the opposite of dementia. The earlier you get dementia, the more rapidly the
it's pretty much it's a death knell. It's just according to how fast it's going to ravage your mind and your body.
Yeah, and the earlier you get it, the quicker it happens. It's the opposite with Parkinson, thankfully, in Raven's case. I want to bring up Muhammad Ali. Have you seen, I don't know if it's Rumble in the Jungle, or it's a documentary afterwards. I don't know if he was fighting Trevor, I can't remember his name, Trevor Burbrink or Burback, or whatever it is. He's got the mustache. And in the 2 or 3 years between, I think it was the Rumble in the Jungle documentary, When We Were Kings, and then another one he did afterwards, the difference is shocking in how he speaks and how he moves and how he carries himself. And they attributed his slowdown to Parkinson's, but I think anybody could have pretty much seen that and say, no, it's CTE. I mean, he's got a horrible case of multiple concussion syndrome, as it would be called, afterwards. But they're attributing it to something else to get the heat off boxing to a point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you would say that basically the trigger there was the Rumble in the Jungle, because that's the famous rope-a-dope where he's just like, I'm going to take all these shots and tire this dude out and then win the fight, which is exactly what happened. That was the fight, correct, where he did the rope-a-dope?
Yeah, Foreman, yeah.
Good Lord. He was taking multiple concussions just in that fight to really, survive that. It was crazy. But I remember the picture that sticks out to me, or the video clip that sticks out to me more than anything, is him lighting the Olympic torch, and his right hand is just doing this the whole time. It's terrifying. And Muhammad Ali is about, the most prolific athlete of our time. You would figure that guy, and his defense was incredible. So he didn't get hit a whole lot. He got hit. Just getting hit's enough. But you want to talk about somebody like a Floyd Mayweather. His defense is better than any boxer that I've ever seen. But he may not be immune to it. Even just catching one good shot could be enough. This is these two diseases, Parkinson's and CTE, dementia, Alzheimer's, are the two most mysterious diseases about who gets it, who doesn't, and also how fast it might be. There's rare cases with Parkinson's, even early onset, and the person doesn't change their lifestyle or diet, and it just goes off the rails.
Did Raven have a particularly risky style? Because I know he was in ECW, he was hard-hitting at the time. The most famous example is Tommy Dreamer smashing Raven's head in with that chair when he was his arms out, chained to that cage. So you can't brace yourself, you can't get your body into any more comfortable position. You basically just take it, and that's the one that sticks out in my mind. But did Raven have a particularly dangerous style or the way of bumping, as something that he would constantly get concussions, more than your average wrestler at the time?
Well, when the time came, Raven would perform. But he had what he called his dog and pony show. Ray, or it was Meanie, Nova, and myself. And then other people. And then in WCW, he had the flock there. So he was always surrounding himself. That was always the joke. And Raven would always do ring the bell, then the match time starts, and he comes back. He goes, guys, I want 35 minutes out there. But he would be cutting promos. He would do a lot. That's what I mean. Raven knew how to work. He didn't do anything excessively dangerous unless the storyline called for it. I would say you're talking about the chair shot heard around the world where he's tied up to the cage in the crucifix. What about during the double dog collar match where they gave him a super bomb and the back of his head right at the base of the skull hit the table? Maybe that could have done it. Maybe the hardcore title matches in WWF could have done it. Maybe his independent wrestling career. Maybe the dog collar match with CM Punk and ROH. Maybe the TNA matches where him and X-Pac had that the Clockwork Orange match or other matches he had. He was always bleeding, always taking chair shots to the head. You never know. I don't know. The only problem is that the guy has it and hopefully he can treat it and hopefully it's manageable. But we can sit here for years and try to guess, well, what was the point? What was the matches? How many bumps? How many hardcore matches? How many chair shots? There's no telling.
I think
look at Mick
basically,
Foley. Mick Foley is not feeling he's feeling the effects, but is Mick Foley diagnosed with anything at this point?
Well, his body's broken down completely, but as far as mind goes, I don't know. But that might also go towards a lifestyle thing. I mean, he wasn't a drinker, active reader, that kind of, things like playing chess, reading a lot, that kind of thing, actively staves off, so they believe, CTE, dementia, all that kind of thing.
Video games too. We got to get our video game.
Well, it genuinely is.
Yeah,
it really is stuff that laser focuses your concentration. You constantly, fast twitch movements or anything else like that is great for you.
You know what I would recommend Scotty, Raven, or anybody do? And there was a gym when we lived in a different part of Florida, and a lot of these gyms, and you probably know this too, a lot of these boxing gyms, they have Parkinson's classes because the most important thing is to keep that coordination, that cognitive focus, and also it just kind of, for some reason, I don't know why, it reduces the shakes along with the medication to manage it. Have you ever heard about that?
No.
Boxing class, there's dedicated boxing classes, at least in Georgia when we lived there and here in Florida. There's classes for Parkinson patients, even ones in wheelchairs, just to get that coordination down and keep it up.
Couple more quotes.
He probably wants to hit me, so maybe he can take a boxing class just punching me.
And a couple more quotes about injuries. I haven't been on the road a whole lot the last couple of years because in 2022, I had both knees replaced. 2023, I had my shoulder replaced. 2024, I had spinal stenosis flare-up. So I've just been rehab. And then there were comments about Raven's sleep patterns and then Parkinson's can affect your sleep. But as far as I gather, he was always someone who was a bit of an insomniac. And as far as I gather, he was always last in the bar. Pretty much. He was, a heavy partier over the course of decades.
Yeah, when I knew Raven and we traveled, and obviously I had done a lot of stuff for him as far as errands and things like that because I was his lackey. I was his protege. 12, 1, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, he would get up. His sleep was completely backwards. He was very much a night owl. He could not even sleep when it came to that. He was very restless. He was always tired. Yeah, I can't say, but the thing with, and I'm just speaking honestly, because this was a running joke amongst Meanie, Nova, and myself, and even people down the line. Remember I told you JBL was like, man, you guys had a great match with the Hardys. Too bad it was a handicap match. Raven would be on a bump count for himself. We would do over-unders on his bumps, and he would always be in the under category. That's making a great worker because when the time came, Scotty was there. But this whole thing about replaced knees and shoulders and stuff, I'm like, it doesn't make sense because I took a lot more bumps than Raven. You can vouch for that. He put me in the ring to take the bumps. That was my job. So maybe it's just the drugs, the partying, and the other things about not taking care of yourself, that was what festered those internal problems. That's the only thing I can think of.
He gives sleep disorder and all that quite a lot of quotes. There's something, I'll finish on one more quote. It's about his quality of life. But I sort of said, I made a video on this quite a few days ago, and I said that Raven is kind of a walking advertisement to today's wrestlers in a sense of what not to do. I mean, he had his career, he had memorable moments, that kind of thing. Over his career, he also took a lot of chances as far as the hardcore stuff. I mean, it's weird that he wouldn't take many bumps, but he would very happily take a chair shot to the head kind of thing, which should clue a lot of people into reining in some of the more extreme things today. But once again, if you're in your 20s or 30s, you're very unlikely, no matter how good of a lesson you can learn from them, take the opinion of someone in their 50s or 60s, even if they've done everything before you.
Well, I'll tell you this, just to interject this. The wrestlers are doing much worse than taking a chair shot heard around the world. They may not party at all, which is a great thing right now. They might play their video games, have the music room and all that stuff in different locker rooms. But I think the ratio, if you compare it, they're going a lot more dangerous than Raven did. And even without the partying, I think they're going to be in a dangerous spot, not in their 50s and 60s. I think in their 30s and 40s, they're going to have a lot of problems if they continue down the road they're going.
Multiple concussion syndrome, is it me or does it seem to be on the rise? Or are they just getting pulled up more for concussions these days because they've got protocols in place? But man, a lot of people seem to be getting injured. I mean, if you look at AEW at the moment, there's Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland and Wardlow. Loads of them are injured and they're barely doing anything or barely working.
That's
as
the
far
thing.
as
That's the thing. You know, house shows it's a grind. You don't want to be away 200-300 days a year, but at the same time, the house shows served multiple purposes. Obviously, to get a match down, get your wind up, make sure you're conditioned and ready so you can get real experience, reps, as they would say in the NFL. You need to get quality reps. But also what they did was, in your mind, you said, well, when we come up to TV, I have to be able to work next Friday, Saturday, Sunday before TV. But now, every week, every TV, every pay-per-view is a WrestleMania level exertion of energy and physicality. Do you see what I'm saying? The boys and the girls don't protect themselves because they're like, man, I got to put it all on the line because I'm not working for another 5-6 days. That's the trap.
Seth Rollins probably has fallen into that trap now. What better time to bring up the Seth Rollins injury? Is it real? I think the general feeling is that, yes, this one is real, but it's a what went wrong. And nobody, I think, quite realised that anything had gone wrong until on Monday when it was suggested that he'd done damage to his shoulder, torn a rotator cuff, or injured his arm, something like that. And that's why Bron Breakker and the Vision turned on him and kicked him out of the group, I should say. So, over to you, Stevie. This is from Crown Jewel, Perth, Australia, sponsored by Call of Duty. Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes in the main event. Stevie, what went wrong?
I have not seen this yet, so there's going to be an instant reaction to this. I assumed he was injured if they were going to hotshot the turn from Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, but let's see what happens here. Obviously, he's going for the Rob Van Dam Van Terminator without a trash can or a chair. He's going coast to coast, as you would say, from this turnbuckle to that one. Oh, but he's not doing a drop kick. Oh, wow. There it is right there. That's the beginning. I'm surprised he didn't, break his arm. He obviously did all the pressure of this bump down here is on his shoulder. So what a weird move. What was he trying to do?
I guess a diving headbutt.
Yes, he was.
I mean, it's another ill-advised move.
Too.
It's a diving headbutt, but
yeah. This is like, you know what would be cool, and you know what no one's ever done, but there's a reason for it. Oh, he totally did. He get a a torn rotator cuff off this?
We don't.
If he didn't, he's lucky.
Yeah, we don't know at this point. We believe that Seth is going to be having more tests done this week. It also goes to a conspiracy theory that is why he was wearing a massive coat on Raw yesterday on Monday as we record this, to hide some like possible heavy bracing. He was also photographed around Australia with his arm in a sling after this as well. So we can get into, is it real, is it not, specifically with Seth due to the Saturday night's main event faux knee injury thing where they seemed determined to fool the fans into thinking he was going to be gone for a while, and then he wasn't. But now this time everyone's thinking, yeah, this could actually be real.
Well, I'm going to say right now, this injury is sponsored by Slim Jim. So snap your shoulder into a Slim Jim. Well, this is TKO. I'm sure they would do it if they thought about it. But that's a super cool move. That's awesome. He hit the headbutt perfectly, and he took care of Cody. But the thing is, I don't know what you could have done, like his hand's here. If his hand wasn't down to at least brace it a little bit, what are you doing then? Your whole left shoulder is like, you could literally probably break your shoulder and maybe have a neck injury to go along with it. There's no good way to bump off this. This is really, dude, he's so athletic. I got to put it over in a way. He's so athletic to be able to pull this on. And look at this. He knows it's a bad bump. This here and this here is like, this is going to hurt a lot. How do I brace myself? And by bracing himself, like, dude, you could have broken this shoulder and tore that rotator cuff. We could have a multitude of injuries when it comes to this. Obviously, he was holding the microphone with his right hand, so I guess it's okay. But man, this is really bad. Yeah, right there. Look at that. Once you see it sort of braced up against your body, something's wrong. Elbow, wrist, shoulder, or all three of those. And look, it's dead. You wouldn't be selling it like that if it were fake. Now we are in Boy You Cried Wolf territory, right, James? Mm-hmm. Based off that Saturday night's main event, quote, injury with LA Knight and Seth Rollins, where he just ended the match early. Now, the weird part about this is he's hurt for real, but he finishes the match and goes over. Strange kind of reversal on what should have happened. You know what I mean?
I think at the time with the Saturday night's main event knee injury thing, is that I'll always say this, I made the point, but we sort of gave them the benefit of the doubt, because they actually did do it very, very well. They played it very well. But I remember saying at the time, when he did the quebrada, the lion salt, and landed on his knee, I said, that looks a bit silly. It looks a bit too pro wrestling. You know what I mean? He sort of jumped up.
Yeah, but we thought it was a two-stage injury. Like he did the first thing where he landed weird, and it seemed like his knee kind of like really buckled towards the inside, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So we thought,
but that was on like the almost like the rolling thunder thing. So he does a forward roll, doesn't he? He lands, it sort of gets up on his knee,
and it buckles towards the hard cam, and then he does the lion salt, and that's there. I thought it was just like a bang bang injury that he was like, oh, that felt weird. Then his knee came straight down on the mat, and I was like, he could have blown his knee out. I mean, if they're going to do it that way, book your whole show and make us believe everything else. Yeah, I think there's a thing.
Chris, B-rolled this in. Hopefully there's a picture, a fan picture will come up with the credits and everything. So Seth Rollins was spotted out and about after Crown Jewel in the streets of Perth, I guess, with his arm in a sling. So people, but the thing is, he was turning up to AAA and Raw and stuff with his knee in a brace as well. So people were once again dubious of the claims. But also, we'll get to Raw in a minute, actually. But also, it has been said that he's been taken off internal tour schedules as well in Japan. He's been replaced by Dominic Mysterio. He was going to be in like a 6-man or a tag team, whatever it was, in main events in Japan in this weekend, I guess. Or, Friday and Saturday, I think. And now he's been taken off. It's been treated for the most part that this is a legitimate injury. But also, what did you make of the Raw angle of Braun turning on Seth and kicking him out of the group and getting Paul Heyman involved. How do you react to it? And does that lend more credence that he is actually injured?
Yeah, I would say so, because they really hot shot at the turn. Now, this is going to be a benefit in a way to Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, who were really just kind of minimized in the Vision group as just two, kind of like AOP. They reminded me of just the AOP guys that Seth had before. And they were really doing a lot of great work on their own. Now, it's unfortunate with the injury. If it is indeed valid and credible, it sucks, because I looked at the history of Seth Rollins, how many times he turned babyface, turned heel, turned back and forth. You get to a certain point creatively where the fans now, and especially with the boy who cried wolf stuff with the injury, should we have sympathy for him? Is this just, quote, a ruse? What do? Therefore, we may just sit there, cross our arms, and just watch. There may be apathy down the road, not sympathy for Seth Rollins, because so many times you've turned back and forth. This angle and this group were just starting to get their legs underneath them, pun intended, and now you just throw it all by the wayside, and this guy now is going to be out.
Big Show syndrome, I think that's called. Didn't he turn like 38 times?
Yes, he did. It was originally Paul Orndorff who was like, you've turned twice. Oh my God. Now Seth is in basically almost double digit. Yeah. Philly accent, double digits. My goodness. I will say this about the match, though. Number one, he was going over. So he's going to finish the match. He was winning that belt. But I really believe the real reason, in all seriousness, this guy right here. What did he do when they worked the cage match and he tore his pec? Probably the bravest, most courageous performance I have ever seen by anybody. This, Cody with this, and this is before the match started, not the finish. Seth had an easier time to finish the match in a way. Cody was the poster child for every wrestling school I ever grew up going to in the initial and then furthering my training. You're hurt anyway. You might as well win or finish the match. And Seth's thing, you're hurt anyway. Might as well win the belt.
Yeah, he won the Crown Jewel title or whatever
Can
it's
you
called with the ring as well.
explain that to me? What is this championship?
Okay, right. As far as I can tell, it's a Saudi Arabian thing that they invented, and it's probably, I don't even know if it's like the original one that was from Saudi Arabia last year, because that thing was probably the most expensive championship belt in wrestling ever made.
It was real.
And it was real. Maybe they can afford it, why not? I don't know if it's the same belt or like a less expensive knockoff kind of thing to give it him, but it seems to be like a once-a-year thing for Crown Jewel, regardless of what country Crown Jewel's in. I don't get it, anyway.
That's what I mean. It's Crown Jewel, but it's not in Saudi Arabia, and it's for the Crown Jewel title in Australia. I'm confused.
I know. Well, we're also going to be confused by one more what went wrong before we shut down the show for the week. This is from AEW Collision this past Saturday. Kota Ibushi versus Josh Alexander. You have seen this one, I know, because this was going around on the internal WSI WhatsApp as one of the more baffling injuries as well. I'm not even quite sure how it happened. Just a little misbalanced thing could have just cost Ibushi his career. It's amazing, almost, in the saddest way possible. Stevie, what went wrong?
Yeah, I agree. It's amazing in the saddest and worst way possible. And this isn't going to be one of those what went wrongs where it's like, oh, you stupid whatevers, and you did this, and this was unnecessary. This is pretty pedestrian and freakish in a way, right? As opposed to, it's going to be hard to even guess what's going on, but we know the result. And unfortunately, such a terrible break in the leg. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. And also, like you said, really, honestly, career-threatening. So let's take a look. And by the way, Josh, oh my goodness. Even Josh, I was going to say Josh Alexander. What's wrong with my Philly accent? Josh has been, for people that know him, one of the nicest guys, one of the most caring guys. He will take care of you. So this is not like just some sloppy Josh Alexander spot. He's a very careful, grounded worker. And this kind of thing here. Josh also could have got hurt. It looks like he just came. I'm going to slow it down. He literally did the splash onto the outside. You know what I mean? It wasn't any like you landed on your side. It was literally, and I see his legs trying to brace his fall. Do you see that?
Yeah, but he's landing on the guardrail. His knee does hit the floor, but his body hits the guardrail. And I think that must account, that sort of extra momentum, his head stops, but then his body and his legs keep swinging down. That extra momentum must be how the injury was caused.
Yeah, we're going to look at the replay, but now that they cut close to this, he's a lot closer to the guardrail than I guessed on this initial thing right here, because it looks like he just lands there and it's done. He's kind of splashed the floor and that's it. But let's take a look at the replay. That's going to show us exactly what happened. Oh. So is it his right? Oh, that's an ugly, that I can tell the leg, that right leg underneath the left. It looks like it's just dangling right now.
That is indeed the right leg, yeah. They got injured.
I was looking at this. The pain, you might not see it on his face, but I can see from the grip on the guardrail when his leg breaks. Watch it. He grabs. He goes there. Almost hits his head if he doesn't hit his head. The leg comes down. And look at that. Just gripping the guardrail. You know what I mean? Like almost like that concussion where your hands just kind of seize up in pain. Oh, man.
Now, I'm sorry if
he's buried his head in his arm, too. It's just like, it's excruciating pain.
The femur is what Kota Ibushi broke. He's 43 years old. I've got some quotes and everything else now. This injury can take up to 2 years to rehab to get to a point where he's going to be back in the ring. This is a severe bone break. And I was talking to Dutch yesterday, as we record this, about this. He broke his femur. The difference between the two is, he broke his femur in two places just by stretching. That's why, when he was Zeb Coulter, he disappeared for ages and then turned up on a rascal scooter afterwards. Is because he legitimately broke his femur and it's never recovered from it. Because he tried the surgery and the surgery didn't work and he nearly died on the operating table. The only difference is that he said he never felt any pain. He just heard a loud pop.
Wow. Well, Ibushi looks like once you bury your head right there, you're in some kind of pain. I don't know if it's from the impact, like you think you blew your knee out and you heard a pop. Hearing a pop usually means your knee got blown out, your ACL, ligaments. But this is even worse. And the femur has that artery in there that if you get cut or that gets severed or
the femoral
ruptured anyway, you're dead.
Yeah, femoral artery.
I'm hoping he didn't fly home. That he's still in. This is in Daly's place in Jacksonville, correct?
Yeah.
I'm hoping he's not going anywhere.
The match.
Look at this.
Yeah.
I have to say this too. Josh Alexander's looking right at Ibushi and checking on him, even though Josh just took a really rough bump. I just want to point out that there's no positive out of any of this because this guy might never wrestle again. But Josh Alexander's a guy that gets it about protecting your opponent and about he's checking and looking, making sure he's okay. Nobody feels, Ibushi feels awful. Nobody outside of him feels worse than Josh Alexander. Let's not, he feels terrible. And if this guy's career is over in a match that involved Josh, that guy's really going to be down about that.
The match was thankfully cancelled immediately. They didn't try and power through it. I mean, how could you with a broken femur, I guess? Can we go to the other video again, Stevie? Because I want your opinion on just what caused the balance issue, because it just seems like such a tiny thing. And Josh, I'm presuming, is a big, strong dude.
Whatever he was trying to do with this leg to bring it over the rope, do you notice that? That's where it starts to go wrong. Usually, why is he not? He's trying to get his footing right here. It's kind of cut off. So his feet are on the second turnbuckle, and usually what you do, if it's in a fireman's carry, you brace. Kota should be kind of really resistant and being tight around him on the shoulders. Then Josh steps up, and I'm assuming they're doing like either that Finley roll or they're doing some kind of like thing like the Death Valley Driver in front of him. But where it goes wrong, for some reason, see how Josh is lifting that left foot, trying to lift it over the top rope? That sets in motion everything moving in this direction. Whereas if he kept his foot down here, the downward, and I'm going to put it back here, all the leverage is down, all the weight is down, and then jumping forward is where they should go. Once the foot, that left foot right here and the left leg goes in this direction, all the momentum is going in that direction. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a weird thing that thank God Josh was suspended, because he could have landed right here on the apron with his neck. And then two guys are pretty much done. But that's where I see it. It looks like a fireman's carry where you should really bring the momentum straight down and then take the bodies and go in that direction. It does the opposite. All that there.
Kota Ibushi has already been operated on. He posted on Instagram, I think yesterday, as we record this. I don't have the full quotes, but with the Google Translate, it starts with, the last 5 years of Ibushi's career, it's been nothing but stop-starts and injuries and rehab. And it's shown in his work as well. I mean, I hear constantly, as well as you can see, sort of plain as day, he's not the Ibushi of old. And he's, far slower. He still has his moments, that kind of thing, but he's just not the Ibushi of, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
He's not what we saw with the Cruiserweight Classic, which was one of my favorite matches, him and Cedric Alexander.
Yeah,
yes.
And then he quotes here, my current condition, 1 year to fully recover, 2 years until I can step into the ring again. I believe in myself more than the doctors. I absolutely don't believe in that. I know I have amazing DNA that gives me the ability to heal. So very positive stuff from Ibushi, but also he's 43. And then by the time you're 45, have to go through 2 years of rehab. Are you even going to be interested? He's had such a run of bad luck.
Well, I would say this. You have 1 to 2 years to figure out. We answered a question earlier in this full episode. You have 1 to 2 years. Tony Khan's going to pay you. I have no doubt he's going to pay you, and try to find a position for you in the meantime. Kota Ibushi, use the 1 to 2 years to figure out either what your exit plan is after wrestling, what fulfills you, or what within the wrestling business or even AEW will fulfill you for the next foreseeable years that you want to be involved with the business. He's being very positive. Be as positive as you can. Be determined to get back into the ring, but also be realistic. What I'm saying is use that motivation to heal as quickly and as fully as possible, but at the same time, use the 1 to 2 years off. Learn whatever you want to learn inside and outside of wrestling, whatever you're interested in, utilize that and make your mark inside the business after that 1 to 2 years, or outside the business, or a mixture of both. You could be the Japanese liaison. You could be the conduit between New Japan and AEW. You can train Japanese wrestlers to work in AEW. You could do something completely different. You could work for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm just saying, if you're going to turn a negative into a positive, this downtime is going to be the most important part of your wrestling career, and it may definitely be the most important part of your entire future and life.
On that note, everybody, we will end this show for the week. Don't worry. It's not. We'll be back next week. We don't know what we're going to do yet, but, we're always open to suggestions, I guess. So, everybody, once again, thank you so much. We are on every podcast platform. The Stevie Richards Show is. We always still have to, well over a year, we've got to differentiate between a show and a podcast here. But there's an audio version of the show, by the way, on every podcast platform, as well as on YouTube, the visual version of it anyway, every single Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And there's a new video on the YouTube channel, Stevie Richards Show, every single day as well. All that there is left is to thank you all once again for joining us. And over to you, Stevie, for the Patreon supporters and all that kind of thing to take us out the show.
Yeah, we can't thank everybody enough for their support here on YouTube. Like we said, 1.2 million unique visitors in 2 weeks, and that number keeps growing. We appreciate all the support. It motivates and inspires us to make better content each and every week. My OCD, maybe I'll use one of our sponsors, BetterHelp, for that. But patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Our Patreon supporters are growing as well. What do you say? Strength to strength is what you said,
yeah,
right?
Something like that. It's going from strength to strength.
With that being said, we'll crack on with the pitch for Patreon. How's that? Watch-alongs every Monday morning this week. Brett versus Owen. James says the greatest cage match in not only WWE history, but wrestling history overall. Also pre-show, which is a show within the show, show notes, and behind the scenes of not just the Stevie Richards Show, but the relaunched Stevie Richards Wrestling Analysis YouTube channel. I've been doing a lot of stressful behind-the-scenes videos for everybody there. Please catch it. Please subscribe here on YouTube. And please check out Patreon and become a supporter. We try to bring the most amount of value there. Most importantly, thank you for tuning in to episode 67 of the Stevie Richards Show. See you next week. For episode 60. 8. And I'm done. My voice is gone. Hey, what are you, a smartass?